Hello, 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 hello to everybody. It is that time. Let's see who'll be with us here. We are live to jive. Let's see. Oh, hello. I guess we have some people here. Give me a name and where you're joining me from. I've done a live in a while. So, to anybody who's with me, just give me a shout out. How are you doing? Uh, that is Semenya E. Semenya. Hello there, and how are you doing? And just give me a shout to anybody else who's with me today. I know it's Friday night. It's youth day coming up soon, or youth weekend. And boy, are people enjoying today. Good thing it's mid-month, so otherwise there'd be regrets. Okay. All right, we'll give everyone a few minutes before I get started. As I said, just give me a shout of your name and where you're joining me from. Today, the drift of today's conversation, people, is as I've said, this is my first year outside of the bracket of youth, and there's some lessons in life I just wanted to. Wow, from Dublin, right, man? We're international, bro. We're checking the statistics, bro. We're checking those statistics. We're international, bro. Thanks. Yeah. So what we're trying to do here is what I'm trying to do is it being Youth Day. I thought there are just a few things that I wanted to maybe pass on in terms of the lessons of my youth. Because now I'm no longer classified as youth. I live in a different realm. I'm no longer eligible for things like youth empowerment, things like that. I'm a few months too old. Some will say they are honorary youth or anything, but I think it's time we allow the next generations to kind of run the things they need to. So today is just going to be that moment. Maybe it's therapy for me. Maybe it's getting things off my chest. Whatever it is, I know that the future of this country lies in your hands and the hands of this generation. And that is what today is really about. So tag your friends, those you think should be here. Join us. So I do want this to be a little bit of an interactive session. I want questions as well. Like I said, I'm out the game now. I'm in a different. I have to now go into a different league. But yeah, we're gonna try and get everyone in first, and I know some people are gonna watch this later, have a deeper conversation with this later. So today we're gonna go through a quick video which really triggered this for me. I use the word triggered because I know it's used very, very differently, but it is what encouraged this. Let me say, from Vusi. Then we're gonna talk about 58 years of freedom and what maybe we lessons we can learn as a generation. I'm going to talk you through 8 trends. So you want to take this down. I'm going to talk you through 8 trends you should be looking out for as young people, things that are going to shape the next 20 years of your life. Okay, these are big global shifts and trends that we're looking at that are going to change the nature of the way you do business, the way finance works, the way life works. We're going to talk about those trends. Then we're going to talk about power, because one thing as a group of people we have been trying to battle with is power. It's going to be a little bit of an extensive session, but we're going to talk about power. I'm going to talk about legacy building and why you all need to start looking at legacy, especially if you're going to be an effective generation. Our generation, we're run through, we're done. But if you're going to be an effective generation, you're going to need to start thinking legacy. And I'm going to walk you through the 3 components of legacy, especially legacy building. Then some lessons I've learned from areas of my life. I'm going to talk about, handing over the baton, what we should be handing over to you as a generation. And finally, I'm going to talk about legacy building. Some lessons I learned in certain areas of my life, which I think could be possibly useful to some of you all. So thank you for all of you who are with me. Fizak, was it Usteri? It's Fagi Chitanda. Lovely to have you here. To everyone who's here, please buckle in. Like I said, this is a conversation more than it is me. What's it? Just giving some sort of talk. It is a conversation to people. And if you do have any questions, like I said, it's a bit more open today. This is not me giving a lecture. It's a bit more open today, I think, for more of us. So to everyone, as I said, but this is just me having a sharing session with you, especially it being Youth Day. It is, like I said, a therapeutic time. So I think we have managed to get to a certain level. I think we managed to get to a certain time period here. We've been in for 5 minutes, and there's a video that came out, and I'm going to give this some context. This is the point where I do think that we do need to start talking as generations to each other. I'm not an old man. Don't worry. I don't think I've just all of a sudden become an old man. I think there's a difference between me and the Mdalas there who are at the top and the youth generation. There is a bit of a difference. I've just literally come out, but I've just exited, like I said, my run. So there is a video that did trickle this up, and the first one starts with there was a video, I think, of 30 minutes where Vusi Tembokwa opened up about the recent issue he had with the statement that he issued. And he, just for context, after the killing of AKA, the murder, let me say, of AKA, he did say that, and he was trying to make the point that the current government has been ineffective at handling crime. And he said that unfortunately, and he actually was trying to say, unfortunately, the grotesque government that was the apartheid, if they wanted someone found, they would have done it. And that's the problem. Why? I think the point he was trying to make is, why is it the evil regimes are the ones that are the most effective, but why the good ones are always bumbling around ineffective? This is why people end up drifting to these things. But the point he was trying to make is, it's unfortunate that the evil regime that was apartheid, and I think people came after him, started calling him delusional, started going after his family, trying to threaten him. So he had a long session with people. He had a 30-minute video, which he did come out and he did speak out against it, against some of the things that were said to him. In that conversation, there's something that he talked about as to why, and he was addressing the people of South Africa. And he was talking about why up to now development has not occurred, especially to the people. At a human level, development has not occurred. It's happened to them as a country, how trains are being built, roads are being built, wonderful corporations, DSTVs launching satellites, companies are expanding, but the people are still left in the exact place where they were. Why is this happening? And I'm going to just play this 1-minute clip where he actually explains something that's very important as to what kind of things we need to do to shift the way we're thinking. And that's going to be the basis of our conversation here today, shifting the way we think about things so that we can build a much better nation. So here we go. This is, as I said, video from Vusi, where he actually did have this conversation.
And you don't move to learning where they are capable. See, if you stop at hating the other party, hating your enemy, and you don't move to learning where they are capable so that you can become equally capable, nothing changes. Study civilizations, groups, societies, and communities that have suffered oppression and come out of that. Look at the Emiratis and what they have done post their colonization by the British. Look at the Jews and what they did post the horrific effects and acts of the Holocaust. Of course, they hate the perpetrators of their suffering, but they didn't stop there. They went to, not only must we hate, we must also understand their capabilities so that we can make ourselves equally capable. The reason the masses of South Africa are not progressing is because you're stuck at hate. You're not moving towards making yourselves capable. That's the reason. And because you're stuck at hate, you're easy political fodder for the politicians. They throw a few hateful words around. They say stuff about other groups and they sing a song that riles up your emotion about the struggle. And you're in there hating, baby. And you know what happens after you vote? Fuck all. Do you know why? Because you're stuck at hate. You're not building capability.
So that's actually quite brief. in what he said, but I'm just going to round up what he said there. And thank you very much, Innocent. I've got a comment here. I will share that. Thank you very much, Innocent, for the compliment. And yes, but I am fully African, my brother. I've never left this continent in terms of my education. I've been here the whole time. But yes, that has been my affair of economics. But one thing that Vusi was pointing out that's really important is that unfortunately, as a generation, we've been whipped up into a frenzy of emotion. We have been made emotional. And as a result, we cannot resolve the issues of the past. And we are constantly, as young, and I'll keep saying we for now because I've been saying we for so many years, we are we're constantly utilized by the political system because we are easily emotional. We're easily always on the streets pumping our fists, demanding this change, that change, thinking change happens in a crystal ball and happens in a quick bucket. And the politician will feed that. They'll just keep feeding that because we're not trying to learn from we're not trying to learn what we should be. We're not trying to learn the importance of where we should change. So I'm going to share with you something I shared earlier today. To people, if you're just watching here, there's something I shared earlier on my page. And this is a statement by Professor Amy Chua from her book, Political Tribes. That's why this was actually one of the books that had transformed my thinking. And I'm going to read from her part here. Then I'm going to show you what I mean by the quotes here. She talks about how the British managed their divide and rule strategy. And the divide and rule strategy of Britain was extremely effective. Now, to just take us back, the divide and rule strategy of Britain was that the British could come to Zambia with only 1,500 people and 2 million Zambians and subjugate us. They could arrive in India with only 40,000, 50,000 people and subjugate 200 million Indians. How were they successful at this? Well, a lot is found in what Professor Amy Chua actually says. She says, Great Britain's divide and rule strategy has allowed them to successfully rule over multitudes of subjects with their relatively small occupying force. They are obsessed with ethnic, religious, tribal, and caste differences amongst their subject population, often deliberately pitting these groups against each other. This is how 40,000 British ruled over 200 million Indians for 200 years. And one has to wonder if the modern day identity politics and political tribalism is not just a localized adaptation of the concept in order to turn citizens to subjects and to transform the democratic governance to colonial rule. That is exactly what you need to think about there. Okay. So when the British came to Zambia, they came here. Oh, it wasn't Zambia then; it was a landmass with multiple different tribes of multiple different groups of ethnicities, and they arrived in this area in 1850. That's the first people like David Livingstone, who arrived here. And I'm sure there's historical people from there, but I'm talking about the British specifically. They arrived here around 1850, but they only turned Zambia into protectorate in 1890. Now, the reality is that between 1850 and 1890, they studied you. They're methodical. They took notes. They recorded the way you behaved. They looked at who is most likely to fight who. This is what they did in India. This is what they did in North America. This is what they've done in multiple places. They know how to pick people apart because they study them, they're patient, and they're methodical. And they ended up managing to take control of a country. So the question is, how come 58 years after independence, we have struggled to defeat the system and we have struggled to move out? A few of us have moved out of where we were subjected to. But as a whole, as a collective, we're struggling to get out. We're still 90% odd in poverty, living in what is substantial poverty. We're still struggling as a society. So why is this? And I'm going to get the second part of the quote, which I had here. Please look at the part on the right. This is Sun Tzu's Art of War. And here's what he says. If you know your enemy and yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not your enemy, For every victory gained, you shall suffer a defeat. In other words, you'll make no progress. If you know neither your enemy nor yourself, you will succumb to every battle. But to know your enemy, you must become your enemy. Okay, so this is what I want you all to understand and why I was making this point earlier today. To know your enemy, you must become your enemy. And part of what I was trying to get down to is that as Zambians, especially youngers, we are almost romanticized to hate what happened to the history of this country because of the frustration of where we are stuck. Youth frustration has been political fodder for many years, and we have to stop being used. We have to. Okay. Otherwise, it never gets done. You see, politicians have learned very quickly that frustrated youth are the easiest path to get into politics and possibly stay in politics. But really, when you start to fix their problems, they stop becoming political fodder for you. So, if we want to get out of being political fodder, we cannot wait for the government to pull us out of the problems. We have to start working together as a group to be able to do that. And I want to show you quickly where there is signs of this happening in Zambia. And I'm very proud of this. When I looked at the figures of what's it called? The figures of entrepreneurship. This is data collected from labor force surveys from 2017 to 2021. And it looks at the employer base. That's why I've said Zambian entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur is somebody who creates jobs. So if you look at the employer base of Zambia, versus men and women, we've seen that we've moved from about 30,000 young entrepreneurs who are creating jobs for each other towards way above 80,000 now. We're actually running somewhere along the chains of 85,000 young entrepreneurs who are actually hiring people, not just running businesses, but hiring people. This is the change we should be talking about and we should be pushing through. And it has happened really strongly, especially 2020, 2021. And I'm hoping when the 2022 data comes out, we can show ourselves to be even much stronger. So that's what I want us to focus on as a people. How do we fight for that level of independence ourselves? Not from the system, not from anything. How do we as a collective attain the independence that we are fighting for, and to stop fighting this endless battle of putting somebody in office, begging them to give us policies that help us? Then halfway through, we get frustrated with them, pick up the next disheveled piece of a politician, put them in, beg them to do that, and just keep doing this over and over again until we all get frustrated and we become the politicians that subject our people to that kind of torture, which is wrong. Okay. So, how do we break this cycle? And this is what, like I said, this is going to be the driving force behind this. And what I want to give you is the conversation of China. You see, why I gave you that quote about Sun Tzu is that China took a slow, methodical approach to development. They did not rush it. You know, right now we are hearing people already saying the current administration have failed us. 2 years into the past administration, it was the same thing. The current administration have failed us. 2 or 3 years, after 2 years, if life hasn't become rosy as cakes, all of a sudden that administration has failed us, and we have to look for a new one. Our only move is to look for someone new to try and save us. We need to stop looking for saviors. Okay, we need to stop looking for political messiahs and saviors, and we need to start doing these things in the areas of business and finance and entrepreneurship. Just like we started to see there, we need to start progressing in areas. Okay, we really, really, really need to start pushing ourselves to progress in areas of business and finance so that we can develop the base. Just like in America, how the young people developed Silicon Valley, which has become this engine of power for the young, the young white kids, obviously in Silicon Valley. Hopefully, it was meant to be the same with rap music, where young black people are supposed to do that. This is supposed to be our thing. Our enterprise movement is supposed to be some sort of Renaissance culture that pushes us to now seek individual autonomy and freedom. So this is why I want to talk to you about 6 centers of power coming in a little bit later. Okay, what I want you to do, and please, those of you who are watching this, take notes. Okay, this is about shifting our minds away. So what did the Chinese do when they walked into power and they took control? What China first did is they established that China was a very poor nation. And the history of China, I think people need to understand, is that China was the number one economy for almost 600 years. Okay, for almost 600 years. What's it called? They were the number one economy for almost 600 years, from the late part of the first millennium into the middle, so up to about year 1000, up to the year 1500, somewhere around there. That's where China lost their throne to the Dutch. Then the Dutch handed over to the British to the Americans. So that's pretty much what had happened. But China was the number one economy for that period of time. Okay. Now they wanted to come back. So when China fought away the Kuomintang and the Chinese Communist Party came into power, the vision they put into that country was by the year 2049. This is 1949. People are declaring a vision that they are probably not even going to see. Chairman Mao and his friends are long dead, but they declared a vision upon a people to see that they could cross to the finish line and say China is going to be the number one economy in the world by the year 2049. And they've been operating on a 100-year development plan. Every 5 years, they do a quick one just to check out where they are, but they have been operating on a 100-year plan. Every single leader of China picking up where the last one left off on, to make sure that the country gets to a destination. There is a promised land that they've pointed their people at. Now, the problem with us is that we haven't created a North Star where we are going. China has taken a methodical approach to this. They understood that the enemy of their progress was the capitalist system and the global system. So what did they do? Instead of sitting down and becoming woke civil rights activists, wearing Che Guevara t-shirts, taking pictures with posters and placards and thinking that's what makes a difference, the Chinese studied capitalism. They studied it to a T, and then they found a fundamental flaw in it. They figured out that capitalists are greedy and they will always push for the cheapest thing so that they can get the maximum profit. So they opened their country up to the Western industrial countries and said, come and manufacture here. We will give you the cheapest labor you can have. And every company across the world rushed into China and decided to start producing there. What happened? The Chinese learned their products. They studied, they opened their factories. They make sure they structured it so that you can't really own the factory, but you outsource production too. Read the book, read the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. He actually explains that Taiwan, China, these mainstream Asian economies never allowed these guys to actually own the factories. They allowed them to do business with factory owners. That's how they did things. So the Chinese were learning the intellectual property. They were learning the designs of sneakers. This is why today, please look up a sneaker called Anta. Okay, there's an actual Chinese basketball shoe called Anta, which even has NBA players in America who are its spokespeople. Okay. And Anta used to produce shoes for the Reeboks, the Pumas, those people. They used to produce shoes. They learned the technology. Now they're competing. Anta, I think, is now the third or fourth largest shoe manufacturer in the world, on the heels of Nike, which were the people who used to produce. China was learning. They were studying these people, how to make it cheaper, how to do it better. They studied. They were scholars of the system, and they were patient. They were willing to suffer in the 90s, where their employees were getting paid peanuts. They were willing to suffer this. And as a result, they developed an industrial strategy of becoming the world's factory. That is the strength that they built. They became the world's factory. Now, the problem with all of us is when we got our freedom, we did try and industrialize, but then we tried to convert from the colonial control to government control, now investor control, to Western investor control, to Eastern investor control, but never the people being the one to develop things. This is where the problem comes. The Chinese built their factories. They learned how to do this. Okay, the people in other countries, even Egypt, the people build stuff. They make stuff. This is what develops these countries. People doing things. People deciding that the problems of their country are their responsibility to fix, and it's them who have to create businesses that do that. So let me show you an example of how this has changed, how there's been a huge mindset shift between the Chinese, who used to take aid, by the way. They used to get foreign aid and development assistance. and how China has switched from being a collector of aid to even a giver of development assistance, and Zambia has stayed stuck. So let me show you a quick chart which tracks the years of China and Zambia's development in terms of this. So these two charts here, and I hope you're able to see them. This is what I call visual dead aid. So I'm going to go to the top part here. The top part here. This is net aid and assistance. The red line is China, and this is in billions of dollars. As you can see, China used to get about $2 to $3 billion of aid. And all the way up to the mid-90s, they actually reduced. They systematically reduced the amount of aid that they were getting. Now, except for the spike in 1995, Zambia was getting close to about 900, and then they got stuck on about $600 million of aid. And we've been increasing. So you can actually see this top bar show that Zambia has stayed receiving $1 billion or so of aid and development assistance, while China is now a net giver. They're actually in the negatives here. That's the difference. What is the big difference here? What has this resulted in? Now, we are fed this story that, oh, we need aid, oh, we need support, oh, we need all of this. Well, let me show you something very quickly here. If you look at the chart here of the and I've just zoomed this in. This is poverty headcount, percentage of the population that lives below $6.85 a day at purchasing power parity. People, we've already corrected for this in economics. It is $6.85. Trust me, this is a correct metric. Okay, I know people will say, but $6 in America is different. Yes, that's why we say purchasing power parity. Okay, so let's end that argument. As you can see, in the 90s, China was actually struggling more with poverty than Zambia. The red line is China, the green line is Zambia. So Zambia was at 90%, 89. China was 99% living in poverty. So have you noticed that as they stopped taking aid and they started focusing on industrialization and manufacturing, notice how their whole poverty level collapses. It actually collapses because they focused on making money. They did not focus on trying to take. They focused on making money. But Zambia, who focused on just receiving money all the time, look at how we are stuck with 93%, 91% poverty. This is World Bank data of poverty. And as you can see, as a result, we have not developed. We have failed to develop because we still think the best thing we can be doing is collecting aid checks as a country. That is not important. That is where the problem comes from. So the first lesson we have to learn is the best way to build wealth is to make money, not ask for it. It's to make money. Okay? That's the difference. That is the first big mindset shift that China had versus Zambia. China stopped receiving aid and development assistance and started pushing forward into developing themselves. What can we make that the world needs? Where can we be at service to the world? That is what they started to focus on, especially after the fall of communism. The questions they started to ask now is, where can we be of service to the world? Zambia is out there saying, where can we look for money? And we have inculcated the next generation to start thinking like that. Where can we look for money? Look for money. The rest of the world is making money. We are looking for money. The rest of the world is creating things. We are looking for people to give us. Okay, that is a mentality that has sieved all the way into the depths of society, where when we vote people in, we're hoping somebody's going to arrive at our house with a pile of money and nothing else. Just give us. Okay, that's where the struggle is coming from. And that's the mentality we must shake off. So here's the beauty about a country like Zambia. When you are like us, statistically speaking, 79% of this country is below the age of 35. Okay? And 52% of the adult population is still below the age of 35. You, as the youth of this country, make up the majority. Okay? You make up the majority. So you can change the thinking of this country by collectively changing the thinking of yourselves. You don't have to wait for some old person to walk in and run. You can do this. You actually have the power to, because you have the numbers to do it. You have the strength. You just have convinced yourself that it requires you putting someone in there and then praying that person will do miracles for you, when really the miracles are sitting inside of you. It doesn't take that collective effort. It takes a generation. Within a generation, you can see transformation in Zambia. A youth generation that's embracing entrepreneurship. And Semenya, you've asked what was the decline in 2018. Usually when you do, I remember that 2018, there was a washout of entrepreneurship. Businesses did fold for a bit of time because that's when the kick in of that recession started, when we started having those slowdowns towards the end. So unfortunately, those are the tough things. But young Zambians worked through the tough times and decided to start stuff. I've noticed that whenever our people are faced with adversity, we start things. The biggest destruction of Zambia is actually when times are good, because when the good times come, the drinking and partying starts, and we just throw away everything. But the reality is that when the tough times hit us, all of a sudden we dig into ourselves and we start to build businesses. One of the greatest entrepreneurship growths you found in Zambia was actually between 1991 and 2005. Zambians built businesses at record rates in the heart of the roughest period. They built businesses, boy, because they had to. But the moment the good times went away, the moment the tough times went away, it appears people just folded up shop, started looking for work, and threw away their dreams. And all of a sudden, the entrepreneurship essence, which was driving this country, just washed away. And people got stuck in farmer input support. People got stuck in all sorts of things. And the game ended there. But this is the generation that can speak a bit differently. There are also changes to this generation in that Zambian youth are more financially literate than the older generations. So I'm hoping that us as people can be more, we can continue this. Zambian youth are more financially engaged. They're trying to invest their money. We've seen what happens when people don't save for their elderly years. So I'm seeing a lot more young people with 50, 100, putting money into portfolios. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands here. Young people who are really taking their gratuities, and instead of buying up cars and lifestyles and stuff, they're simplifying their lives and investing as much of their money as possible. That is something that is actually changing in society. So there is an opportunity for this generation to step forward and to do something really, really different. I really, really hope that, like I said, as we have this interaction, we can do this. So I'm going to give you 8 trends that are really going to dominate the next decades of your life that you should be aware of. Okay. These are 8 trends, and somebody can just give me the note-taking emoji so I know that you're taking notes. But you really want to take care of these. These are important. When I do risk training seminars, these are things that when I set up for people, these are important shifts that I tell people. So as people, the first mental shift I want you to have is the power is in your hands to design the country. It's not your vote at elections that will change this. Don't be fooled into thinking it is your election behavior. It is not. Your change is going to happen right now when you decide to say, I'm going to run my business, run my money, and run my life in a better way. And if many of us just decide to do that, then it's going to be better. Thank you, Kondwani. If as many of you can just write that for me so I know that you're taking notes on this part. So the 8 mega shifts, the 8 mega trends, because I need to open your eyes to where the waves of society are going so that you can make decisions that are data-driven, market-oriented, and you can actually do what's really important. So the first one I want to talk about is the 3 Ds, and I think a lot of you have heard me talk about this. It is what I call decentralization, digitization, and democratization. Everything in the world of services and finance is actually turning into this. And this experiment of the internet plus social media. So between 1990 and about 2005 was the rise of the internet. Okay, the internet proliferated into society. Then from about 2005, about 2005-6, that was the birth of social media. So we went from living online, now we started connecting and socializing online. So we've digitized, but then we've created a society online and we've decentralized. I'll give you a simple understanding. Zambia is about 2.6 to 3 million people on Facebook. Okay. When I came back to Zambia in 2011, we only had 200,000 people on social media, on Facebook back then. Twitter was almost non-existent. Okay, Instagram, remember that thing wasn't even that big then anyway. But these things were not there. We weren't really utilizing it. Most people in Zambia were getting their news from physical newspapers and radio stations. The majority of people were obtaining and absorbing media that way. Today, the newspapers are gone. Only 2% of Zambians get their news from the newspapers. Those things have vanished. It is now social media. We are interacting there. We're devising commerce through there. We're making sales through there. We're doing all sorts of things. Unfortunately, we do a lot of frivolous nonsense on social media, but there is stuff happening there. Businesses are being built through social media. So there is this change now where we are no longer doing business all the way physical. We now have a lot of digital components to it. I'm not sitting in front of a group of people physically. I'm sitting here digitally. Okay, communicating to as many of you as possible. That's a huge change, by the way, in society. Other things that you will see, so that's digitization. Then decentralization is that we are shifting away from central structures, companies, central living, forming centers, anything. Okay, everything is now being decentralized in a way that the virtual world has allowed for. Amazon, for example, allowed for this. So I'm going to give you an example in Zambia. Okay, the mobile money rise has been done through a network of decentralized booth operating agents. And mobile money has gone from nothing in 2011 and 12 to the number one form of payment, where 50% of retail payments in Zambia, 295 billion kwacha, is being processed through mobile money. That is almost the size of the Zambian GDP, by the way. 295 billion kwacha worth of transactions being done through mobile money. That is the size of our economy, almost. Okay, we're about a 400 billion kwacha economy, and it's almost being dwarfed. And this thing is growing about 70%, 80% odd a year. The proliferation that is being used in society is massive. It is the number one most used payment, and it was nothing 11 years ago. Checks have disappeared. ATMs are disappearing. It's only POS that is also growing. Even people transferring money on their accounts is disappearing. People are opting to use their mobile money accounts. Mobile money business is big. And it's because it's utilized a decentralized network. Why is this important? Because Zambia is a decentralized society. We're not really a job-seeking society. We're not really a job-having society. It's very easy to bank a society or have jobs, because every employer can just say everyone just has to have a bank account so I can pay you. That's why countries like Japan have got banks, but countries like China have got mobile money. That's why South Africa, Namibia, Botswana are banked. Zambia, Kenya, rest of East Africa are mobile money, because we're decentralized societies. So decentralization is going to rapidly move through Zambia because it fits with our model. Okay, it fits with our model of doing business, marketplaces, working together in collectives, cooperatives. That way of operating, where there isn't some sort of a central structure, is going to allow for a lot of decentralized business models and decentralized services. So whenever you're doing business, always ask, is there a method of decentralization in there? Another one, obviously, is democratization. People want the power to make decisions for themselves. This is why there is a rise in things like village banking. Though village banking has really had its bad rap, but it's had a rise because people want the freedom to be able to pick who can get loans, as opposed to they want freedom and they want access and they want choice. That is what consumers want more. And democratization of services is about giving people freedom, access, and choice. They want the power for those things. And your services have to give them that. So they want to be able to, and this is what you have to understand. Digitization allows somebody to access something easily. Okay. Decentralization allows them to access something anywhere. Democratization allows them to access anything. So your consumer wants easy access everywhere, and to access everything, as many things as possible. And they want the freedom and choice to do that. And the Zambian consumer, through the mobile phone and all these digital devices, tablets, everything, they're waking up to that desire and they're demanding that desire. Okay, that is what is happening. Now I'm going to add a fourth D in this, and that is called dematerialization. The young society are no longer physically holding as many things as possible. If you go into a young single person's house, even married people, if you go into a young person's house, you don't find much stuff like you used to in the older generations. There's actually a lot of open space. Older generations used to have shelves and all these things and photo albums, everything. Everything is now in your phone. Your photo album is on your Facebook, it's in your Instagram, it's on your Google Photos. Everything is actually in some sort of archive space. Now, I'm not saying everyone is doing this because we do have a rural community. But remember, Zambia is actually going to, in this decade, we're going to transition from rural to urban, by the way. We're actually transitioning out of a majority rural society and into an urban society by the end of this decade. Okay, so by 2030, you can say goodbye to rural domination. This is now going to be majority urban because there's still urban migration. What's happened recently, in fact, if you look at the census documents, is a lot of people have shifted to Solwezi. So Solwezi, the whole line here from Solwezi, Copperbelt, Lusaka, Livingston, that's dominating the population of this country. So there is still a migration to the urban centers of this country. So there is still a lifestyle where digitization is promoting something called dematerialization, where people now have phones to watch stuff or laptops to watch stuff. They don't have those giant TVs as much as they used to. They don't have giant stereos. They have a small little device that plays music. A lot of people are switching to a lot of small, friendly things. And you actually find open space in a lot of people's homes. So it's just the big clunky things which they'll have, like stoves and fridges and things. But in a lot of younger people's homes, there isn't that much in terms of space. So even the housing business can actually now start to look at creating more compact housing because people are now living more minimalist lives due to dematerialization. Even the experiences, we're now a more experience driven society than a things acquiring society. Sure, we still have people who are AMA levels and that stuff, but people are more about taking a picture of the vacation they went on and taking a picture of the sneakers they got. It's a different society now. Okay, so experience driven people. That is our generation around the world, by the way. We are the experience driven, especially Gen Z. Those of you who are born 96 onwards are very experience driven because of the digital world you've been raised in and you've grown up seeing. I got on Facebook when I was in college. I dread to think some of these kids who started their lives on Facebook. Okay, that's a different experience of life. Okay, then I at least matured and finished my life, finished my youth, my childhood before I actually got onto social media. There people got onto social media age 11, 12. They've already started seeing this thing at work. They started engaging in it. And they grew up through it. So this is a generation who, by the time they were 10 years old, social media was prevalent, and they've grown up with it, and they're voting, and they're living, and they're all here now. So that's the first trend. The next trend you need to watch out for as you are in this generation is regionalization. We are deglobalizing and we're regionalizing. So, in other words, a lot of business is no longer being done across the network of global economics activities. It's now neighbors. Your biggest trade opportunities. So, if you're a business who's maturing, you want to start looking at your neighbors. Okay, this is the way you build this country. You need to catch the trends. China caught the electronics trend and they learned electronics, produced it so well, became the cheapest producers of electronics. Huawei, all this stuff gets born and bang, you've got China today. Okay, it is the number one place. Electronics are their number one export. Okay, China is very good at this. Even if you look at what we import from Zambia from China, electronics are at the top of that list. So they learned the wave of change. So you must foresee what is going to change in the next 20 years or so and start picking towards it. So if it's now trading with Zimbabwe, how many friends have you picked up? How many friends do you have in these areas? You're young, you're on social media. Unlike us, or the generation before, you have to physically travel to a country to make friends. You can now start doing this online. You are savvy enough to operate in that world. Okay? So utilize your online time to start forging connections as many places as you can. Shoot your shot. Don't just ogle at people on the internet. Make comments at socialites things and the pictures they post and yada, 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 and get involved in conversations. You need to focus on utilizing your time. Let me show you why. The Chinese right now, while you're on social media, and we're doing a lot of things on social media, when the Chinese go live, do you know what they're selling? Live selling in China is the biggest thing. Okay. The Chinese influencers run shops. They've got shopping networks on there, making millions live selling. Okay. That's their business. They'll sit there and do product demos and everything. America is failing to catch up. Amazon is struggling to do it. Alibaba got into the game fast, and they're doing live selling. They're doing billions of dollars of live selling. Hundreds of billions of dollars of live selling is being done on social media in China through their live streaming Alibaba. So utilize your social media for your commercial expansion. So regionalization allows you to start plugging in. A lot of social media allows you this. So start trying to explore other countries. Figure out what's going on where you need to be. I get inboxes a lot from my friends from other countries trying to talk about business that we can. You need to start becoming that business oriented. Don't wait for the president to start bringing you opportunities. Get out there and start looking for opportunities for yourself. Okay, there are people who you know in these other countries. There are people who you know who have traveled to other countries. Start talking now. Okay, get off these calls and start doing as much business as you can, especially with neighboring countries. If you know people in Kenya, you know people in DRC, who do you know in these countries, and how do you know how to get there? Do your business with these people. That's your best option here. The other thing you need to start looking at is the rise of sustainability and green business. This is very important because a lot of capital is going to be tied to it. You are seeing places like Zanaco who are putting a very good premium on being environmentally friendly and also sustainable. So sustainability they look at is environmental, social, and governance. They're looking at that. The ESG framework, study it, build your business model around it. You cannot just build a business for profit only now. The business has to make profit. It has to make profit. Okay, that's not going anywhere. It has to make a profit. Number two, it has to serve people. In other words, does it create jobs? Does it improve society in a way? And then it also has to help the planet. Are you digitizing? Are you maybe paperless? Are you a lender who's decided to do a more paper-free activity, and then therefore you're helping the environment? So you need to now start building into the DNA of your business, which is the business model. You've also got to learn how to start business modeling. Built into the DNA of your business model should be profit, people, planet. That should be there. Because if you want to be at the front of the queue for finance opportunities and you want to start getting a lot lower costs on your capital, you need to familiarize yourself with greening your business models and also making them more sustainable. You need to start looking at doing business across gender lines. You need to start doing business. You need to start also tapping into the opportunities of being youth and organized. Be organized, okay? Because then you can go to companies like Zanaco, like Standard Chartered, all these bigger businesses, and start asking, look, if you have a contract for cakes for your business, I'm a young entrepreneur. You've got to start doing business with young entrepreneurs. In your pitches, you need to start putting that there, okay? You need to start being aggressive about the position you have in society and selling also that part of it, because these businesses also have to be compliant for ESG. And part of that is not just giving out loans for ESG. It's not just giving out jobs for ESG. They also have to give out contracts for ESG. So they need to be able to offer that. So if you can start to sell the social impact of doing business with you. So in your sales pitches, add your social impact, okay? Say that it is a social impact for you to do business with a young person, because that is part of you helping the young society. Okay, as young entrepreneurs, you need to be able to say that. That's part of it. Now, even when you're investing your money, think about that. Capital is going to flow not just to the most profitable, but to the most sustainable. Okay, so even businesses have to start doing that. This thing of talking about 20% contracts going towards the local society, you'll need to start pushing for that. That's a minimum benchmark, people. We're saying at least 20%. We should be talking about formalize yourselves and get serious to the point where you can start eating in 30-40% of these people's money. Okay, big businesses should be paying out to youth entrepreneurs. Okay, that's where you get your money from as well. So sustainability is also going to be a very important thing. One of the things you also have to familiarize yourself is the cycles of development that Zambia goes through. And I pray that maybe this conversation with you as the youth might change that. Is the populism versus professionalism. This country has got a horrible habit of whenever there's inequality, we rush to populists. When the populists devastate the economy, we rush to professionals who then cause inequality, then we rush to, and we keep running between because we have this savior mentality. We're always looking for a politician to save us, and therefore the development cycles are not done properly. I'll tell you how this works. Under President Mwanawasa, where there was professionalism, they believed in pumping money through the business system to expand the economy. Under the populist movement of President Sata and President Lungu, they believed in expanding the government. That's why in investment cycles, you saw the stock market expanded under President Mwanawasa all the way up to President Banda. And then the bond market, the government bond market expanded under President Sata all the way up to President Lungu. So you'll notice that even asset markets move with these things. If you're conversant with this, you'll know where to put your money. You'll know how the cost of capital will affect you. You'll know how to manage your inventory cycles. If you understand the political system that you're operating under, you'll know how they're going to make decisions. And you cannot just keep there praying that they're going to make the right decisions for you, but you're going to be able to now start predicting. At this point, interest rates are going to go up. So maybe I need to find alternative sources of capital. Maybe I need to start managing my cash flows a little bit better. But when interest rates are up, that's also a time for me to compete better. That's a time for me to sell better. I can pick up a lot more customers during that time. You'll know how to navigate. So understand that we are currently in a professionalism cycle. Hopefully, we can end these professionalism, populism cycles. But that means after 10 years of professionalism, there'll be inequality, and therefore we'll vote in a populist. So in this 10-year professionalism cycle, this is where a lot of business growth happens. So this is the time to capitalize on business growth. But at this in the professionalism cycle, it's a time to consolidate your position. Okay, that's where you elevate yourself. So entry of businesses, this is a good time to get started, but you will see that the cycle of professionalism, of populism, if it does come in the next decade, and I'm sorry, but we are preparing ourselves for it, because unfortunately the professionals are blind to the inequality they cause, and therefore the populists are blind to the damage they cause, and the people are just caught just juggling the two around. But hopefully you will become independent enough to stop the carnage and to just start picking people on policy, not professionalism or populism. Because those two things are both based on how you see the person, but not what they're offering you. Now, what I want from as many of you as possible is what we call the Booker T. Washington development model. Booker T. Washington, who was the first ever civil rights advocate in the world, black civil rights advocate back in 1860 when he was a kid. He was born in 1856. He was a slave in America, grew up in 1890. He says to the black people, we rushed to get involved in politics. What we must involve ourselves in is economics. Because he said, when you get involved in the economy, your decision-making improves. When you have bonds in your portfolio, stocks in your portfolio, when you have a business that's active, a career on the line, you start to think about your decisions a bit more critically. You start to think that when someone says, I'm going to give out this, that, you're thinking, whoa, me, I pay taxes. Where are you going to get that money from? You think very carefully. So if we want to end the populism and professionalism cycles that disrupt our growth, okay, because it's not really the change of party that messes Zambia up. It's the change of direction that messes us up. So we don't just change parties, we change the whole direction, okay? Because we don't have a long-term model. So what we're going to have to do is develop a vision, and we'll talk about that just now. The fifth trend, I've talked about decentralization, democratization, digitization, also dematerialization. I've talked about regionalization. I've talked about green business, and I've talked about professionalism versus populism. The fifth one is China will no longer be a market that's conducive for us. The Chinese service sector is growing faster than the Chinese manufacturing sector. China is aging, okay? The Chinese population is getting old, meaning they're no longer economically active anymore, meaning they can no longer also produce as cheaply as they used to. Now, we can feed into their EV sector for their domestic market, but we can't broadly do business with China like we used to. Okay, they don't have a young market anymore. They don't have cheap labor anymore. People are moving their factories out of China. And due to the regionalization and deglobalization, a lot of the foreign companies are opting to now start doing their business back in. They're not doing semiconductors outside anymore. They're trying to bring their stuff back in because they've also seen due to the pandemic that there is a risk to putting all your factories in China. China has to only produce for itself. So the end product of anything that we're exporting to China can only be for the Chinese market. It can't really be for global. No other country is accepting Chinese EVs. Okay. China is producing EVs for itself, not for the global economy. It's not like Tesla, who's producing EVs for the global economy. China is producing EVs for itself. Okay. Because nobody wants to do business with them at that level anymore. They don't want to empower them anymore. So they've actually walked away from trying to do business with them in that regard. So a lot of what's happening on the global economy is when we're feeding China. So just be very careful about any businesses that involve China to ensure that the end consumer of that business has to be the Chinese consumer, not the global. Okay. There are some businesses that you can, but in the manufacturing sector, you cannot keep relying on China anymore. I say this because Zambian economic growth is tied very strongly to Chinese economic growth, and we're seeing Chinese economic growth struggling to get past this 5-6% mode. They're falling into that trap of when they become a developed nation. Now they are developing the fastest middle class, so they are becoming a market of their own. Okay, but they're no longer the global supply chain connection that we used to see them for. Countries are doing their own building materials, everything. And then on top of that, because China's aging and because they've gotten wealthy, their labor is too expensive. Okay. China is no longer cheap. It used to be cheap, but it's no longer cheap. So we can't rely on them. The sixth trend I want you to think about is monetary policy. The thing of cheap money around the world is not as good. It's not going to be as common. What used to keep central banks like America, Europe, and these ones being able to pump cash into their economies without the risk of inflation was because globalization kept the cost of things down. Okay, whenever a place got too expensive to produce in, you could shift. You could just literally shift to another country where it was cheaper. But that's no longer the case. So globalization is gone. It's going away. It's not gone yet, but it's going away. And it's being replaced with regionalization. And as a result, we don't have this cheap global economy that keeps things at a low cost. We also don't have this digital economy that's keeping things at a low cost. The digital economy has proliferated enough that it's not competing prices down anymore. What you've got now is when central banks pump in too much cash into the economy, they will cause inflation. Okay, even in America, even in Europe, you're starting to see persistent inflation. So days of 1 or 0% inflation in Germany, those things are gone. Okay, that means that these people are not just going to be coming to throw money into your countries anymore. They're not going to do that. So prepare yourself for a little bit more of a difficult road trying to access global capital. It's not going to be as easily and freely available. The only group of people I think who are pushing money easily into Africa are Saudi Arabians. And the reason is because the Saudis and the Emiratis is because they're running out of oil money. Okay, so they're trying to pivot their wealth into multiple things. So now they're diversifying their wealth. So they're trying to invest in as many things as possible. So to understand that trend, China is trying to defend its own market. The Western world cannot pump out money anymore. So the most flushed with cash group of people currently right now is the Middle East. So if you want to start obtaining capital, you're going to have to start becoming friends with people from that area, because they're the ones who have got excess capital that needs to go out to as many places as possible. And therefore, you can see the deals that are being done. So these are the trends that are going to form, because the Middle Eastern communities are going to have to pivot away from oil as EVs become dominant. Electric vehicles have become 10% of cars produced now, new cars produced now. They will probably take over almost 40 to 60% of new cars produced between 2030 and 2040. And therefore, they will start taking over the fleets after 2050. The majority of car fleets will then start transitioning to electric beyond then. So the Emiratis have understood, and the Saudis have understood, that during this period, while oil has hit its peak and it's starting to come down, they need to now start winding up and moving their money towards other areas. This is what creation of sovereign wealth was about. So that is an important part that you'll see, that due to deglobalization and regionalization, interest rates are not going to be easily available. Therefore, the only flushed with cash area which we'll have is the Middle East. We may have a lot more trade deals. Accessing cash will not be as easy from the East and the West, but it will be better for us to access trade, because they are looking for business partners in these areas. So they are looking to be more trade conscious, and they are looking to be more aid and development conscious. Then there is a divergence that is happening between the rest of the world currently. One little hampering when it comes to the rise of green businesses, that the Zambian consumer, the Zambian, is not yet caught up in this ESG environmentalism. Yes, people in this country, sorry about that, yet people in this country like to talk about sustainability and climate change and everything. But that's just because that's where the money is, okay? The people with the money are the ones who are demanding that you talk about climate change and sustainability. But in terms of the demands of the Zambian people, we're not yet there. I'll tell you why. Look at Malasha for an example. Okay, we haven't yet switched. Zambians are not yet conscious of the environment, so we're still willing to chop a tree down to cook because we haven't also reached a certain economic status. I think what most of the world does not understand is that it takes being wealthy to care about your environment. Until you reach a certain level of wealth, you care about survival. You don't care about the environment. Okay, that's a reality. So we should actually now continue to look at things like that. And finally, this is more of a social trend, is that as we are evolving as a community, there is a change that is drastically happening in the next generations. And family formation has been affected. Now, family formation is extremely important because entrepreneurs are often family driven. Entrepreneurs are marriage and family driven. Marriages and family really drive savings and investment, legacy thinking, and entrepreneurship. They really are the pivot of all of that. So there has been a shift. Obviously, this is the rise of women empowerment economically. Zambia has become the 10th most empowered country economically for women. Okay, in terms of equality, when they say 10th most empowered, I mean the bridge of the economic gap is very minimal. Zambian women are about 10% and sometimes even 5% in some years between what Zambian men are earning. They're out earning us in the formal sector, actually. In formal sector earnings, Zambian women are actually dominating, and they're actually above what Zambian men are earning in the formal sector, though per hour. I'm talking about hourly wages. And they're starting to complete school at higher levels. They're completing, they're dominating high school grades. Zambian girls are dominating high school grades. Unfortunately, our young boys are deciding that drinking is the best thing to be doing when they're in high school, while the women are studying. And therefore, you get a situation out of the top 50, only 8 are boys. So as a result, you're seeing the rise of women economically. You've seen that even in colleges, college campuses are now almost 50% women. They're just getting towards their college campuses, university campuses. They're now almost 50% women. So that push that we're driving is we're actually getting a lot of this. And through the workforce, the formalized workforce, you've seen women move from 19% of management positions to 45% of management positions. Women never started businesses. Now they're actually part of ownership structures of businesses. The economic activity of women has actually rapidly increased, especially just in the last 10 years. So the pace at which they're moving is really rapid. But unfortunately, the side effect is with the old traditional values of men thinking that they're going to just dominate households, that has unfortunately created a disruption in the marriage cycles. There's no more marriage formation. We're at a situation now where it used to be only 25% of men between 25 and 29 who were married, where by the year 2050, we're going to be looking down the barrel of 50+% of men between 29 and 29 who will be unmarried, who have never been married before in their lives, versus 27% of women. So the reality is the trends are moving towards a slower family formation that you're looking for. So all of these changes will also have the social impact that you're looking at in terms of your desire to start a family, your legacies, your everything. And that's going to be your driving force. So we're going to have to start looking at these are changes in society. Okay. So you're going to be living single for longer. It's not, I finished school, a year or two later, I got married, and then I built my family. It's, I finished school 10 years later, in my 30s. That's when I got married. Okay. That's what you're going to see. I'm the difference. I got married at 27. Okay, no longer, unfortunately. I think a lot of you know my wife is late, but I got married when I was 27. Okay, but the majority of people in this generation are probably going to see their marriage dates and their family formation dates in their 30s. So it's about 10 years. So what are you going to do with those 10 years, especially guys? What are you going to do with those 10 years? Okay, those 10 years between ending school and starting a family, what are you going to do with them? You've got no family you can take risk. You can try things. Are you going to use those years to blow through your life? And the women are going to continue driving past you. I'm telling you this right now. the pace at which women are going for financial training seminars, the pace at which women are sitting and following things, the pace at which they're going for their group training, they're forming village banks, lending money to each other, the pace at which they're building systems of development. You need to open your eyes wide, because my problem I'm seeing from where I sit is that whenever you go to any development-based seminar, it is majority women. And it's not even labeled women. When Liapambewe hosts Money Acumen at the beginning of any year, it's majority women. When we start hosting financial trainings, it's majority women. Whenever you start seeing these things, I'm lucky that I think I'm blessed enough to be one of the few guys who I'm 50-50. Out of my client base, from my financial advisory services and everything, it's half men, half women. So I think maybe I'm blessed in that area. But whenever I go to anything developmental, whether it's skills training, anything, group, anything, it's majority women. The only place, the only place I find guys as the majority is at a bar watching a football game. That is the only place you find guys as the majority. On a Sunday afternoon at a bar watching a football game, that's where men are the majority at a gathering. Or at a bar on Friday discussing all sorts of things, and somebody's busy calling themselves chairman, but yet there's no company formed. So I'm worried about how little, because of this lack of marriage gap that is happening, because men are very productive when it comes to running a family. I know that, yes, there's some deadbeat guys, but majority of men take family seriously once they have one. Okay, I've seen it. Family and marriage is very transformational for men. Actually, it's very beneficial, not just to men. I think women have, there's been this argument saying, no, it's this thing where man has a slave or anything. No. When a man has a wife and children or a child, there's a switch that goes off in their mind where they realize it's do or die. They have to. Everything is a have to. Work late, I have to. There's a very have to, duty-driven mindset that happens to a lot of guys. So now the slag of marriage formation for these 10 years for guys can affect your productivity. Okay? So you have to now become much more eye of the tiger driven, to not give your life to floundering about with booze. Okay? Because yes, men still dominate drinking. Okay? To floundering your life away with ill behavior, you need to focus for these 10 years. Now, the emphasis is still there. Guys, you can still do it. Let's go back to those entrepreneurship statistics where I showed you how entrepreneurs are operating in Zambia. Okay, you can still see that it's majority men. So male entrepreneurs, youth male entrepreneurs have risen from 21,500 to 58,000. Okay, that is still a strong number. Okay, that is still strong growth. The women have tripled, yes, have almost tripled, but men have more than doubled. So take this as a strong point, as in there has been growth. In fact, even when we're looking at general entrepreneurship of men, okay, of men versus women, when we're looking at those numbers, we discovered that women businesses between 2012 and 2021 have grown. When you include now even the women above 35, women businesses have grown from 6,000 to 35, to 59,000. Male businesses, okay, have also rapidly grown from 9,000 to 150,000. So even without the benefits of the systems and all these training things and everything, you still have it in you to develop businesses. You still have it in you. So just don't waste those 10 years. Okay? Because what happens to a lot of guys is they waste the 10 years between school and marriage. They waste it. They will waste it. A lot of guys from my generation, we all did this. We YOLO'd life because now we were getting married a little bit later. Y'all who are going to get married way later, when you're going to finish school in your early 20s and only get married in your mid 30s, that is going to be a huge amount of time where you can find yourself losing a lot of your life to silly behavior. And I understand that we're young, everything, but we have a big cause at hand. All right. So that is what I wanted to talk to you all about in terms of the trends that you're going to face. This is what you are going to face. I've exited this part of my life, but you as the young people of this country now, this is what you're faced with. You're faced with a world that's digitizing, decentralizing, democratizing, one. Number two, you're faced with a world that trades more with its next door neighbors. It promotes trade with neighbors more than it promotes intercontinental trade. You're faced with a world that's demanding that your businesses be green and sustainable in order for you to access capital in a sustainable fashion. You're faced with a country that's going through cycles of populism and professionalism and is currently in a professionalism cycle. You're faced with a country with a world where China is no longer the big daddy provider. Okay, they're now trying to fix their own economy and manage it. You're faced with a world where there is a divergence, there's a social divergence between things. And, you've got a youth who are more active. You're faced with monetary policy where money around the world is not just going to be floating around. Central banks are going to be a bit more conservative about their pumping out, and therefore interest rates are not going to be as low as they used to be. So it's going to be very difficult. You're going to have to manage a higher interest world just in general. Not higher than this, but I'm just saying it's not going to be as low as maybe you were hoping it could be. You're faced with a world where families are forming a little bit later, where women are empowered to develop themselves, and men need to wake up to the fact that they need to either pick up the pace or at least keep up, or else you're going to be left undesirable and struggling, and you may end up frustrated for no reason, because deep down in our hearts is the desire for family. So these are the things you are faced with, and you have to navigate through them, see the opportunities in them, and defend against the threats from them. Okay, that is what you need to start looking at. And developing a personal strategy is going to be the baseline of all of this. So this is the first half, because I told you this is a long one. Buckle up. We're gonna finish this off and have this conversation about how to actually build the next generation. Now, there's 6 silos of power. Now, in order to influence your life, you need power. Okay. Right? Power is what influences things. You can be as strong as you want. My brother's a pastor, and he preached a sermon at Bread of Life in Chilanga where he said, strength is in the body, power comes from God. Strength is where you push. Okay, I went and read the definitions of strength. Strength is what pushes, power is what moves. Okay, so if you want to move the results of your life, you need to look at power. According to Eric Liu, there are 6 silos of power. 6. Okay, 6 areas. We often focus on one because we utilize the word power for politics. That's what we think is power. But there are 6 methods of gaining power in this world, and they're in 2 bundles. One is what I call systems of power. The other is what I call social power or soft power. So there's systematic power and there's soft power. And let's talk about these 2 very quickly. The first form of power is a gun. Okay, weapons, physical strength. If you are physically stronger than people, you can have power. But in a world that does not promote violence anymore, and where we're at peace and where there's no war, in a world where maybe there were constant wars around, yes, that would have been the case. But you are no longer useful anymore if you're a thug with a gun who thinks that you're the king. That doesn't work as much anymore. Maybe to a politician during an election year, sure. But being a thug with a gun doesn't do much for you, so you can put that away for the meantime. The next form of power is political. We often think politics is where we can try and get power. And we focus on begging the honorables and begging these people to give us power, because once we put them in, they'll take care of us and all that. And I think the youth have made a big mistake in Zambia of constantly focusing on politics as power and begging the politicians to do things for us. Okay, that is a big mistake that we've constantly made. Okay, because we think that's the only form of power. Let me give you the third form of power, which is what I think is the most important one. That's money, my friend. Out of the hard systematic power, it's money. Money gives you authority. Money may not make you happy, but I'll tell you one thing. Boy, does it give you choice. It gives you authority. It gives you choice. That's what you need to focus on. Okay? Because once you have money, you don't need the politician to switch your lights on. If somebody starts load shedding you, you can put up solar power. If somebody starts having load shedding problems, you can buy your own backup system. When you have money, you're not at the mercy of those who are in so quote unquote political power. Okay, so you got to figure out how to, 1, make money, manage your money, multiply your money, and maintain your money. Those are 4 money skills you all have to follow. I've been doing that on God's Economy. You can follow me where I'm doing it. I'm not going to do it now, but write that down. Someone write it in the comment section. You need to learn how to make money. You need to learn how to manage money. You need to learn how to multiply money. You need to learn how to maintain money. If you can do those 4 things, you can actually build a lot. And that's why I'm so amped about the youth being financially literate, because I know that you're the fastest to catch on to that stuff. Trust me, this is where you'll beat the older generations at this game. Okay? The one thing I'm seeing with the younger people is when given an opportunity, you're managing your money much better than I've seen before. Yes, people are getting swindled. Sure, that happens, but I'm seeing much better management of money. There's less YOLOing and there's much better managing. So it's make money, manage money, multiply money, maintain money. I want you to focus on those skills. The other three silos of power, soft power, and this is what I want us to start developing. This is why I was giving you trends. The first one is an idea. Okay. Ideas give you power. If you come up with new ideas and they inspire people or they love them you can build a business around an idea. You can build a movement around an idea. Ideas can be commercialized. That's what you need to do. Okay? This is what you need to start working on. You need to push out your ideas. This generation has to come up with more ideas. Don't wait for the older ones. They don't have as much exposure and they're not the ones who are actually with the markets now. You have the ideas. Push them out. Get them started. I want you people, I'm going to write in here, look for a book called The Lean Startup. Okay? They do sell it at Bookworld, actually. The Lean Startup. And I want you to look for Lean Product Playbook. That's another one. And 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Okay, Lean Product Playbook and 0 to 1. I've written them in the comment section here. These are books that should help you about how to get started lean, how to get started from nowhere, okay, how to get started with nothing. You people have to learn the principles of lean starting, how you can convert ideas. And the Lean Startup is the one by Eric Ries. Okay, that's what I need you to focus on. I need you to focus on that. So that is where you'll be able to get. That's where you'll be able to get your ability to get your ideas out, because you can have an idea but executing them, that's where strength comes from. Okay, power comes from being able to take an idea and bear fruit with it. Okay, take your ideas, bear fruit, like the Bible says, bear fruit, multiply, fill the earth, dominate. Okay, so in other words, bring your ideas to life is the act of bearing fruit. Multiplying is where you're now able to sell your ideas to the people, as many as possible. Expanding them is expanding the geographic territory which they have influence over your markets and dominating your markets. What we want to start seeing is what we saw with companies like Ulendo, where a local business can rise to the top. That's what we want to start seeing. But it needs Zambians to start learning the business of coming up with ideas from the bottom and lifting them all the way up. That is a serious battle that as many of you have to have. You need to start learning how to start a business with nothing but the shoestrings on your feet. That's what you need to start doing. How do you start your business with what's in your hand? Forget about what's not in your hand. And then you start going campaigning. We want access to access. No one's going to give you capital. I'm going to be honest with you. Banks are not going to give you capital without cash flow. So, sure, maybe a few of you will get it. Majority of you will not get businesses will not get capital without cash flow. Even in the Western world, 80% of startups that get funded have got traction of cash flow. Okay, so you need to start developing cash flow. That journey from 0 to 1 million kwacha in sales is done with no loans. Okay, maybe just a few friends and family loans, but trying to get institutional loans to get to that level, that's a struggle. You're asking for a lot from the system. It is not built that way to help you. Banks are built to support cash flow. They lend primarily on cash flow. Lending institutions, 80% of the lending in Zambia is done through the banking sector. And so trying to get the bank to twist themselves to lend without cash flow, maybe they can let up on collateral. Maybe they can let up on collateral, but they're not going to let go of cash flow. That one you can forget. Zambia Credit Guarantee Scheme can help them with maybe easing their collateral requirements, but cash flow is what they want to see. And they want to see you running your business properly using tools for accounting. There's these two ladies who have created what's it called, TuManyPay. We're trying to now transition to it. We were using Zoho before. You need to start familiarizing yourself with these back-end systems so that you can operate your business, track your cash flows. So that by the time you're heading towards the bank, maybe what the support you can do is you can actually get some support in terms of the collateral requirements. But cash flow, you need to be able to convert an idea to cash flow without any financial support. So that is what lean startup principles are designed to do. And you need to now start making sure that you have the discipline to not just develop a cash flow from a product, but to grow a cash flow from a product. How do you do that? So you need to start learning how to message your sales, how to sell through social media, how to become your own business influencer. These are the things you're going to have to start learning how to do. Okay, so that is the first form of power. If this generation wants power, you need to start learning how to convert ideas to cash flow. Okay, someone write that one down. I know I'm asking people to write stuff down, but yes, that's an important one. Okay, power equals converting ideas to cash flow. If you can do that, then a lot more power and authority will come into the hands of the Zambian youth. But if we're sitting there waiting for somebody to give us cash before we've developed cash flow, you're going to be political fodder forever. The next form of power after that is culture. The behavior with which we exhibit is what will give us power. You see, when we're easily blown around by politicians with money or institutions with money, it's very easy for us to lose control. Okay, power comes from discipline. If you have discipline and if you have a strong culture as people, I'm not talking about culture in terms of our heritage, that is important, but our current behaviors, our beliefs, and our behaviors in the way we engage with our work and our money and everything, our culture with money, our culture with work, our culture with family, that is very important in developing a power structure. And if we stick to strong cultures and we stick to good behaviors in these areas, we will find ourselves as a generation much more powerful than any previous generation. So that is the battle you need to start looking at. How to then start gaining power through the concepts of your mind, your ideas, the cultures you exhibit as your behaviors. And then finally, the final one is community. Young people have to work together. You need to start learning that sometimes when there isn't cash available, there is cash collectively. You may need, I don't know, a couple of thousand to get started in something. Okay, fine. But what you may find, is that where you may not have all that starting capital, but a group of you might. And how do you start working together? Not only is it about starting capital, it's also about collaborating together to be able to start selling things together, working together. You see, what helps, I want you to go back to that first thing I talked about where the British took over Zambia. 40,000 British took over, 2,000 British controlled 2 million Zambians from 1890. Okay? 40,000 British controlled 200 million Indians for 200 years. Why? Because they knew how to divide them. And once they divided them, they could rule over them. A divided youth is very easy to rule over. A divided youth is extremely easy. So this is why I've always said there has to be a vision for this country that unites us, because one of the things that unites people is a common purpose. Okay? There must be a common cause, a common purpose. That's what's kept the Chinese engine moving in one direction. There's a common vision this country is looking towards. That's what kept countries like Singapore, all these. There are common visions they're driving towards. And that's what keeps these people powerful. If we're going to work as a community, you need to start working together. Okay? You cannot take this I'm alone mentality as young people. You have to start working together, opening opportunities up for each other, collaborating more. Okay? Coordinate, collaborate, learn the Thomas Klinman 5 models of relationships, or it's through conflict resolution. But collaborate, coordinate, cooperate. These are the 3 main pillars of trying to be able, in that order, always look for collaborative opportunities where you cannot coordinate with people, where you cannot cooperate with people, and then finally just coexist and not fight. But you really want to make sure that you go through those main models of doing things. Collaborate as much as you can. Microsoft's operation manager once said, our business goal is to collaborate where we can and only compete where we must. Do not build up a set of enemies. Work with as many people as you can. Connect with as many people. Sell through as many people. Get into the habit of collaborative business. Okay? Collaborative work is what helps people. One of the things that we've seen that has been a roaring success out of the people who have come out of our investment training are people who have formed investment cooperatives. Those groups have been really successful at building wealth together. Okay? Collaboration is strong. It's really powerful. So tap into that strength, because what you may not understand is you are stronger together. You are much stronger together. So while you may be seeking power from politics, power from physical strength, where people resorted to cadresism to become powerful, okay? What you should be focused on is trying to build your power base by coming up with ideas, by building strong culture and building a strong community. Write this one down for me, okay? Concepts, community, and culture. That is the base of power. Those three things will attract a lot of wealth. The politicians will then have to listen to you. They will then have to operate according to you. The only problem with the Zambian youth is you only work together on election day. After that, you go your separate ways. Because straight after election day, you started saying the 2.8 versus the 1.8. And then you're the same ones who are you're suffering. But you're the same ones suffering. Whether you're in the 2.8 or the 1.8, you're suffering. Okay? So take that stuff away. And I'll write it again. Sorry, it's concepts, community, and culture. That is where power is going to come from. And that is life. That's how we will develop life. So in there, building our ideas, building our community, working as a community, online, collaborating with one another, that is where the power is going to come from. If you all start coming together financially, sales-wise, opportunity, if you start coming together, bring up new ideas, building cultures together, this is what gave Silicon Valley the power it has. Okay? Silicon Valley now controls elections. Okay, those were kids just playing around on computers at one point. Now they're controlling US elections. Why? Why is Silicon Valley the center of conversation? Because these kids collaborated with each other, they built cultures together, and they built ideas. That is what they've done. And now they've become the most powerful force in the US. And today, that is what we need to start doing as young Zambians. With which industry we need to decide, but it is about forming collaborations where it's community and collaboration, it is culture, and it is concepts. Come up with these things together, work together. Do not shy away from each other. Stop stabbing each other in the back. Stop trying to get rich on your own, because that ain't gonna happen. Okay, we're too poor for that. We need to start building as a country we have to start working together. Collective work, collective effort. Where there is poverty, it is not aid that fixes you. It's coming together that fixes you. All right. So that's your 6 forms of power. Okay. And I'll tell you the truth that ideas, community, and culture often absorb politics, weaponry, and money. That's where that money flows to those things. So if you want to absorb the wealth of this country, it's in those areas of life. Okay. Thank you very much, Innocent, and thank you so much, guys. Pasmo, all of you, I've seen the compliments. Thank you very much. So that's your 6 forms of power. Now, individually, what should you start doing? Okay, it's Youth Day coming up soon, people. And as I said, I'm out the game ish, but I still have a passion for it. But at this point, you need to ask yourself this question: what is the life I want to live? And I want you to think about it in 3 areas. Okay. And I say this all the time: it is your legend, your legacy, and your lineage. Okay. As young people of this country, ask yourself personally, what do you want to leave behind? You want to leave behind a legend. Okay. A legend is the life that you lead. Okay. And that life is your story, a story that is a testament to either determination, belief, whatever it is. It's a story that inspires people. You want to build a strong set of relationships with people because they'll carry your story around. The character that people can look up to, because that culture should become your character that you build personally. Because you can say the system, all of this stuff starts personally. That's the biggest lesson I learned. Everything starts personally. You can rant about the system on social media all you want. You can write in on your WhatsApp, and you can debate, and you can comment, you can click, all this stuff. But it all boils down to your personal culture and your character. That's where it all boils down to. Until we all start taking responsibility for ourselves, it's going to be a struggle. So point number 1 is building a legendary life. And a legendary life is one that is an inspiration, one that has good relationships, one that is a mature character, one that has got a very, if you are spiritual, your life of worship, that's a very important one. And 5th is your contribution. What problem on this planet did you solve? Did you remove a barrier or did you introduce a better thing? You are a string of code sent into this world to either improve the features of this country or to remove the problems that we're facing. There's bugs and there's new features that we desire. You should be one of those things. So that's a question you need to answer for yourself. That's your legend. Your legacy is, what are you going to leave behind? Are you going to leave behind bonds, businesses, buildings, books? What are you going to leave behind for people to be able to build on or benefit from? And preferably people who will build on it. And how do you leave that behind to the next generation? That is your lineage. So, someone to write these down, that a life, a fulfilled life, is equal to a legend, a legacy, and a lineage. And each of us, if we start asking ourselves personally, what do we want to see? What at the end of our lives do we all want to see? Because, yes, you are most likely going to live between 70 and 80. 70 if you're a man, 80 if you're a woman. In the year 2050, you're going to live that long. What do you want to see when you turn 70? What do you want to have left behind that you'll be proud to move on in life? You can enjoy life as it is right now. Go out clubbing, all that stuff. You can. Trust me, that's there. But I can promise you this. On your deathbed, no one's going to care about that stuff. No one cares about who you hooked up with. No one cares about where you partied. No one cares about what car you drove. No one cares when you drive, except for if they can take it from you. No one cares about that stuff. What they care about is what you changed. What did you change? What did you improve? Who did you leave behind? What did you leave behind? What can I infer from you? What can I learn from you? That's what matters when you die. And if you waste your youth not building on that, it's going to be a sad time, because they will just they will shovel dirt on you, cry for you. Days later, they'll forget about you. So don't waste your youth on trying to impress people now. That is a big lesson. Think about the lived life you want. Okay. And that is your legend. That is your legacy. That is your lineage. And I want you to think about that today when you sit down. Okay. I want you to think about, how are you using your youth to build on those three things? How are you using that? That's a very important thing. Then, in terms of handing over the reins, because this is the important part of this conversation, I wanted to kind of hand over the reins from one generation to the next. Now, there's a scripture that I read on God's Economy last week of First Chronicles chapter 28, verse 9 to 21. This is a story of when David hands over to King Solomon. Okay, King David hands over to his son Solomon the lineage, and from one youth exiting to the youth who are still there. I want to talk about five things that you should have in your life. And the first one is the culture we need to build. If we are going to change as a society, if we are going to see things change, okay, in fact, write these down. This next one, thanks to the people who are actually writing this down. It's actually very good, because the comment section is actually a very good place to remember things, writing things down. So write these 5 words down: culture, cause, cash, character, connections. Okay, write them down. Culture, cause, cash, character, connections. Yes, they start with the same letter. I'm a very mnemonic based person. When I was younger, it helped me learn. So I always make things either sound the same or start with the same letter. It makes me remember them very well. And it actually works for a lot more people. It's a very good teaching method. Mnemonics are a very good teaching method. So you write them. If someone can just write those down, this is what every generation needs to hand to the next. And this is where I think the Chinese did very brilliantly, and Zambia has failed abysmal. And even South Africa, it's an abysmal failure in this area. Okay? And the reason is, this is how you prepare the next generation. And it's actually written in that book from First Chronicles chapter 8, verse 9, all the way to 21. David is actually systematically handing over these 5 things to Solomon so that he can continue, because that Solomon presents the continuity. Okay, so what we should be doing is yes, Innocent, you shouldn't roll at roads. What we should be doing is building a generation with these things. So let me hand over the things that I think need to change, things we should work on, and what I have learned in my life that I would like to hand over to as many of you now is that the culture has to change. The culture of this country has been one that has been built on short termism, instant gratification, and that has been sad. There's also been a culture of outsiders can do better than us when you don't realize that the potential of this country is that if we just apply ourselves, we can actually solve our own problems. So, a culture I would like us to really take in, which I think will be very powerful for Zambia, is a culture of problem solving, not problem complaining, but problem solving. We need to start being the solutions. Okay. So, today, when you see problems in your workplace, when you see inefficiencies in a market and you really feel strongly about it and you have the skills to fix it, rather than rant about it, change it. Okay. Develop a solution to change it. I think one of the strongest cultures that this young generation can do is to start becoming problem solvers. That's a strong culture that we can have. The second culture that I would like us to do is personal responsibility. You must take personal responsibility. And the reason is that when you take responsibility, you are powerful. There's an old saying that says, with great power comes great responsibility. And it actually leads me by the transitive principle to say that power actually is responsibility. The person, as Africans, we like saying, it's the British fault that we're poor. It's this one's fault. It's always someone's fault. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It matters whose responsibility it is to improve it. Even if it's not your fault that something happened to you, if you take responsibility to improve the situation, you will gain power. It wasn't China's fault that they were 98% poor. Japan and the Western world did that to them, but they took responsibility to fix that. It's not people. Listen to people's stories like Dumisani. It's not his fault he was born the way he was. He was born in poverty, and he always talks about this. But he will never say he gave responsibility to someone else to fix it. It was his responsibility. Everybody who has made something of themselves took responsibility, and that gave them power. So there are two things I really want us to focus on as a generation: is personal responsibility and problem solving. These are the two. These are the first cultures I would like us to change, because I think that a lot will flow from there. And if you do take personal responsibility, it often comes with belief. Okay? So write that down. The first one is a culture of personal responsibility. I believe that that's where the change for Zambia comes. If we start becoming personally responsible and we start solving our problems, and those two are tied to each other, by the way. If you are personally responsible, you will tend to start trying to solve your problems. So that's the first culture I would like us to change. That's the culture. The cause is, I've always said, that's my belief, is that a nation is built by the wealth it creates. Even the president recently, when he went to the Least Developed Nations Summit, said, we have to build wealth in order to reduce poverty. Okay, thank you very much, Innocent. I know that you've zapped away, and I know I've zapped a lot of your data, but thank you very much for being here. But you have to build wealth in order to reduce poverty. So the cause here is for Zambia. We are politically independent, but for us to be free, we must build wealth. We can't be free until you can be independent on paper, but you will not be free if you have not built wealth. You first have to do that. And we build wealth by educating our people and giving them proper education. We build wealth by problem solving, starting businesses. We build wealth by managing our money very well. I have a vision to see 1 million millionaires in this country, US dollar millionaires, by the year 2050. That is probably going to be the final tail end, or that's heading towards the final section of my life. But that's my vision. And that's a vision I would like to see as many people, and I'd see it through entrepreneurship and money management. If people can manage their businesses and manage their money very well, I believe that we can build that. And I can give you a quick glimmer into this. China had 20 millionaires by the year 2020. And by the year 2018, 2019, China had 5.2 million millionaires. Think about that very carefully. They went from 20 millionaires to 5.2 millionaires. Why is that? Because Chinese start businesses at higher rates, and Chinese save 20 to 35% of their income at a personal household level. And they invest that money in the stock market and in the bond market. So they start businesses, build income, and invest their savings. This is what they do as a society. And as a society, they have built the fastest level of growth of millionaires you have ever seen in history. And that has transformed their societies. What you've seen is countries which have a higher percentage of people who are millionaires are able to do this. So the common cause I think we all must do is to start learning to build wealth. Countries like Switzerland have got the highest concentration of millionaires. It is millionaire wealth built through enterprise and money management, personal money management, and a combination of both that results in people being able to become who they for a nation to transform. When we start having our own millionaire class, our government no longer goes abroad for money. When we start having our millionaire class, our businesses, our banks lend from our savings. When we start having a millionaire class, we start building venture capital that can tap into small businesses. If we can have the common cause of building a wealthy society, and the next one we really have to start transitioning to is a green society. Okay? That is what I want as many of us start looking at. The world is switching towards this. And one of the things that has really hit my mind is what role will Zambia play in this? And what we should be looking at is the green machine. I've spoken to my friend Daniel, who's actually got into the comment section saying 35 is a transition year. You are out of bracket when you reach 36. A 35-year-old presidential candidate would pay nomination fee via youth discount. You're still one of us. Yes, I am, Daniel. I'm proudly one of us. Daniel and I have talked about that the vision of this country, thanks Daniel for being here, is that we should be talking about becoming the green machine. And the green machine is actually, I think when the president gave his first speech, he said Zambia should be a marvel of industrialism and sustainability. Take that and run with it. That is a 20, 30-year vision of where we can say we should be the vision of industrial development in a green and sustainable way, where we are one with nature, production natural. I've talked about two visions for this country. One is the green machine, the optimal nation that can produce sustainably with sustainable electricity, sustainable material, but produce high quality products, and the natural beauty. The other one that can exploit nature without damaging it. That is a vision that I will pass on to this, that we can talk about and we can work on. If as a generation we put our minds to it and we build the natural beauty and the green machine and we build a wealthy society, and Zambian, like Daniel said here, local benefit initiatives, incentives will build the millionaire drive. If we build locally and we build sustainably and we build beautifully, I promise you that this country will see a revolution. The revolution you've actually been hoping for. Not the one you get promised all the time, the one you actually are hoping for. Okay. So that's what you need to start seeing. That's the cause. The cause is that we must build wealth, and we can do it by building things, as we build for our society, solve our problems. When we expand to becoming an international force, we must prepare ourselves to be the green machine. Okay. That is a vision. Think about it. What part can you contribute to it? Because that's what brings us together. If we can agree on a vision as a country, circulate around it and push it forward, that is what I foresee. I'm talking about Zambia 2050 Green Machine, where we should be in the international community. We should be one of the drivers of international industrial sustainability. We should be the best place. If somebody wants to produce green, if somebody says we went to China to produce cheap, but if we want to set a factory, we need to go and set it up in Zambia because that's where they produce green. These guys are the top of that. When you are known for something and you've got a national brand, Japan is known for precision. Germany is known for efficiency. France is known for beauty. Italy is known for elegance. America is known for creativity. What are we to be known for? Okay? That is the best way we can build the national vision of this country. So that is the cause. I said we build a character of problem solving and personal responsibility. And the second one is we build a cause of either building a national vision, but even for yourself, what is your personal vision? The third one is cash. Now we need to manage our money better. People, we're not going to get anywhere if we can't manage our money. I'm being honest with you. If we are going to get contracts and we are going to go straight to YOLO life and we are going to blow through money, I can guarantee you we're not going anywhere. I can guarantee you. The reason why Zambia went through economic growth of $7 billion to $28 billion, sorry, $4 billion to $28 billion, a sevenfold expansion, and we saw dololo when it came to wealth development, is simply because we spent all the money. The Chinese saved it and reinvested it, because China also experienced a sixfold economic growth in that same period. Zambia experienced a sevenfold economic growth. Difference, China saved and invested their money. Difference, Zambia burnt through their money because when the fun times come, we're in the bars. Okay? So how we manage our money, we need to start learning that when there are IPOs on the stock market, we must be participating. Okay, we must be demanding that if the government is to go and start putting a company on to IPO a company, we must be the front line of participation. We must be opening up opportunities where we can park our money and place it together. We must take pride in being the dominant force of our local markets. That is the main thing we should be talking about, so that profit gets reconcentrated back into our economy. Okay, not just only through NAPSA and all these other things, but even ourselves. Okay, we have to get in that culture of acquiring our local assets, not allowing other people or waiting for other people. We have to get into that culture of utilizing our money well. We have got savings. People, do you know that the value of a company like ZCCM can be acquired by every person who drinks beer in this country? Okay, just for going one beer out of every 10 and putting that into a savings. You know, you can acquire the size of ZCCM doing that. So if you're asking where's the capital going to come from, it comes from sacrificing the spending. Okay? So someone write this one down for me. Capital equals sacrificed spending. That is what capital is. So if Zambians are saying you want access to capital, it's in your hand. You just have a choice whether to go to the bar or wherever you want to spend. You have a choice whether to blow it or to invest it. You have a choice, okay, whether to bet it or to actually invest it. But capital equals sacrificed spending. All right. So as a society, we have to learn to manage our cash better by starting to apply more capital. And sometimes, by the way, if you don't have a lot of capital, you know what you need to invest in is yourself. The first investment you make in life. Somebody will say, but I don't have much. You can afford a book. You can afford a seminar. You can afford a learning opportunity. You can afford a course. You can always afford to enhance your mind so that you can figure out your problems in a different way that's more cost effective, burn through the knowledge problems, and then be able to enhance yourself. But you have to figure out how to invest in something. You can invest in yourself. You can invest in businesses. You can invest in everything. But you must invest in stuff. You can't wait for the government to invest in you. You must invest in yourself. Okay, nobody will invest in people who don't invest in themselves. This is actually one of the reasons, by the way, why international capital is expensive when it comes into Zambia, because Zambians don't invest in themselves. So please learn to invest in yourselves. If we invest in ourselves, this is why Egypt can acquire capital very well. Egyptians invest in themselves. Kenyans invest in themselves. Okay, even Zimbabweans are learning how to invest in themselves. No matter how much trouble they're facing, they're investing in themselves. Zimbabwe is going to outpace us when it comes to lithium production, people. 20% of the world's lithium is about to come from that country next door to ours. And lithium is going to be one of the most important commodities coming out there. And they're positioning themselves to get involved in that industry. But you are busy here. Busy trying, you're struggling where to put your money. You need to start investing in yourself, then investing in your ideas, then investing in the ideas of the country. That is what we need to do. It brings down the cost of capital. If we start investing in ourselves, then we start to remove it. So maybe we don't have the money a lot together, but we do need to start coming together. The power of coming together allows us to invest in ourselves and also to invest in ideas. The ability to see someone come up with an idea and say, we're all going to back you. We'll raise a bit of money behind you, help you get your first starting. You need to create an app or something. Okay, we're all going to put $500 each, give you that starting point so that you can go and develop the app. We'll own 20% of the company. You build it, and let's try and work together. Some people are going to get burnt, yes, but if we can learn the power of collective, of bringing our capital through collectiveness as well. So in as much as I've said capital also comes from sacrifice spending, it also can come from collective power. Okay. you can bring it together collectively. So cash is going to come in two ways: discipline and working together. Okay. So handling our capital as a country, creating our capital base, is going to come from personal discipline and collaboration. Work on those two. Okay. Capital will come from personal discipline and collaboration. As a country, if we can apply those two things, we can build. Now, the other things that we should be looking at, the next thing I want us to look for is character. The character we want to build as a people. What character should we start exhibiting? And one thing we need to start working on is becoming more high performance in our character. And I'm going to share something with you from Andrew Chibuye, who actually, I've always shared this. This is what I call the productivity or the high performance master equation. He did this in a masterclass on YouTube. I urge you to watch it. It was brilliant. But here is the personal character. These first two, which says high performance, culture, high performance people, high performance management. So I want you to look at these first two. And this is the first one here is the culture you need to have. We need to start becoming, and I'm just going back to culture here, but we need to start becoming a results-oriented culture. We need to also start becoming uncomfortable with the status quo. The problem with our people is we're often very comfortable. We're easily comfortable. So what we need to start working on is not being comfortable with the status quo. Okay? The second thing we need to also start working, the third thing we need to start working on in order to improve ourselves as a people is focusing on competence over qualifications. People, you can't just be racking up papers going to school and racking up student debt. You need to rack up skills that you can actually utilize. And then the fourth one we need to start looking at is assuming responsibility before reward. That is a huge cultural change that we need to start working on as a people. Responsibility before reward. Okay, so I want you to write these four down. These are the changes we need to have: results oriented, discomfort with the status quo, competence over qualification, responsibility before reward. If these are the practices as people that we can start engaging in. But in order to do that, okay, so there they are. I just want you to write them down again: results oriented, discomfort with the status quo, competence over qualification, responsibility before reward. Practice these things. That is the culture we need as a country. The next thing we need to start looking at is what behaviors we must start exhibiting. And they're right here in this part, and I'm just going to zoom in on them here. This is where he writes down what kind of behaviors, this green part here. The attitude we must have is that we must start learning to take the initiative for things. We must take responsibility. Nobody should tell us to start. We should become self-starters. Okay? Then that is built on tenacity and resilience. Okay, having a temperament of tenacity and resilience, this will make the Zambian people relentless, restless, innovative, and dynamic. That is the character we need to be: a relentless, restless, innovative, dynamic group of people. And that is where our development comes from. So if we can build on that, that is something that we more must actually work on. So this was, I urge you again, look for Andrew Chibuye's masterclass on high performance. He did it on YouTube. It is the most phenomenal thing. It was life-changing for me. It was very simple, but I think just put your life into that equation, the high-performance equation, and I will share that again even tomorrow for people to see. And that is what I want you to start working on. So that is the character you need to have. And connection is working with one another. The final thing I wrote there is connection. What I'm handing over to this next generation is connection. Connect with each other. Work with each other. Okay? If you can work with each other, we can get far. Connect with the neighboring countries. Start to work in networks. Do not be isolated. The way the world is going. Remember, I talked about the trend of decentralization, the fastest development. Why do you think so much money has gone into cryptocurrency? It's not just because that thing is fancy and intelligent. It's because it's decentralized. It speaks to Web3. Web3 is going to be a world where it is decentralized and democratized. That is the signal. No one person controls Bitcoin. That's the point. No one person controls these things. They're a decentralized, tokenized forms of money. They're not run through central structures. Now, yes, they're high risk because they're not run through central structures, but that's the point, is that the world is switching. connect with one another, work with one another, work with networks. The internet has empowered us to work united, people. That is what we should be doing. Do not work in a silo, work together. Tap into some of the older generation who are willing to reach back. Don't fight, don't force them, but the ones that are willing to reach back, that's your goal. Grab onto them. They are the ones who can lead you through. They are your Moses through the desert. Okay? Connect with people who can mentor you and lead you. Those are the connections that you need. But build networks amongst each other in order to enhance collaborations, but also tap into those who can mentor you and lead you. Add value to them so that they can now have the incentive to lead you. So those are the things that I wanted you to focus on in that. In terms of the whatever you got from that, which is the culture, the cause, the cash, the character, and the connection. Make that what we need to start applying personally, and then we can start applying it even nationally. Everything you do at a personal level is national. And finally, I want to just talk about areas of my life where I've learned some lessons, where I think that you, as the ones who are now facing these next years, and yes, as Daniel called me, I'm youth in transit. As a youth in transit, let's talk about some areas where we all need to start working on things and some trends that will affect it. Focus. The first area, these are the 6 F's. Someone can write these down for me. Focus. So faith, focus, finance, family, fitness, flourish. Write these 6 down. Okay? Because this is where you now start implementing the things in your life. So all these things were overlays. And finally, this is where we start implementing the things of our lives. And I won't take any point. If you have any questions, please put them together and I'll deal with some of the comments here. The first thing is obviously focus. People, work is going to change. The era of the job is dying. So you need to start looking. If you are young, you need to be able to be self-employed. I'm being honest with you. Before you start a business, build it self-employed. Before you look for a job, have the ability to be self-employed in that area. If you have the capacity to be self-employed in a specific area, I can guarantee you that finding a job and starting a business becomes much easier for you. If you cannot build yourself in the self-employment capacity, that'll be difficult for you. Okay, you're going to be on a search and a pursuit for the rest of your life. You're either going to be searching for capital or you're going to be searching for jobs all your life, and you're going to get frustrated. So at this point in your focus area, learn to be self-employed. The second part is learn to work in networks. I don't have many employees, but I have a network of professionals who I work with. I have a network of professionals who I work with, and I've realized that that is the difference. That's the opportunities. I share opportunities with them. I share ideas with them. I share developmental projects with them. We share ownership of things. So you have to learn to work in networks. So work for yourself and work in networks. These are 2 important skills. If you cannot harvest these 2 skills, frustration is going to be difficult. Frustration is going to build on you. When it comes to that, that's something I've learned how to do. I've learned that it is important to build a self-employment skill, not to always rely on a job to be there taking me, but a self-employment skill has become very important to me. And secondly, I've learned to work in networks. That there's so much power in that. In that, you'll find that a lot of your capital costs start to dwindle away when you collaborate. A lot of the capital you actually need comes from working on your own. Okay, it comes from working on your own because somebody may be able to open a door where maybe you needed money to do that. Somebody may be able to know something where you thought you needed money to do that, and you can share the product instead of having to pay them for it. Sometimes you will have to pay. I'm just telling you that some of these things, collaboration and collaboration actually helps. Starting by yourself, self-employed, also helps you scale down and start from the smallest unit of it helps you simplify your business or your idea or your work and helps you get that experience. Other things I need you all to start learning in this time is also that the university degree is not going to be as valuable. A lot of people are shifting towards looking for people who are skilled. So certificates. Now, a university degree is good for when you're rising up the ranks, but coming straight into the labor force with a university degree is not as valuable. People are looking for people who are teachable. Okay, so they're looking for people who can learn, and they're looking to give as many people an opportunity. And because they're going to be operating under a lot of independent contractors, You have to be very careful about that. It becomes very difficult. So there's a trend that's building there. Okay. So work in that line. Your focus area is one where you're going to have to work on your own and work in networks, but you're going to have to also tone down, focus on short form skills. You're going to have to become comfortable with technology. Okay. You're going to have to start learning how to do that. You can't say, I don't know how to use stuff. You're going to start learning how to practice, teach yourself stuff. You're going to have to be self educated. You're going to have to teach yourself stuff. I've got a session on the weekends on Saturday mornings where I have something I call Teach Myself, and where I have to go through, I collected videos through the week and things like that, and I study a specific topic and I try and teach myself something that's changing in society that'll affect my work, okay, that'll affect my cause and my mission. So set aside some time. Time management becomes very important. I struggled with that area, and you really need to start learning how to budget your time. A lot of us financial advisors will tell you budget your money. I don't know how many people budget their time, like literally sit down and say, out of my week, where do I do what? Okay. When do I do creative work? When do I do administrative work? And then start assigning hours to it and then start filling it up with the things that you need. So I think you need to become as stringent as we talk about budgeting your time. You need to as we talk about budgeting your money, you need to budget your time. Faith is quite important in a time like this. I say this because in a time where a lot of you are going to be self-employed, you're going to need to lean on something bigger than you. I don't know what your belief systems are, but I'm telling you this: you're going to need to lean on something bigger than you, because times get tough when you work on your own, and a lot of you are going to be exposed to it, and you're going to have to lean on something. So you do need structure of faith. Like whatever you practice, this is what helps a lot of my Islamic brothers through, and I think a lot of us Christians have kind of abandoned it as well. But I'm just telling you that figure out what is your belief system, because your belief system, by the way, also is going to affect a lot of your decision making. You can't live in this world where decisions are going to be made for you. You're going to be working autonomously. You're going to be working individually in networks. Ironically, you're not going to be working in companies anymore where there's a management and a board and everything that makes decisions for you. A lot of you are going to be working on your own independently. And because you're going to be working independently, that autonomy and independence is going to demand that you have a better decision making framework. So your belief system becomes your governing force of your decision making. So please understand that. That is why I always put belief, whatever you do in your faith, that is going to affect your belief system. That's why faith is a very important place to establish personal goals in, so that your belief system is stable. Okay, you're able to make decisions in a stable fashion. The third thing is your finance. Boy, this is a serious area, but you really have to focus on managing your money. I promise you this: life gets access to credit, access to opportunities. Everything comes to people who manage their money better. Okay, I know that this world can tell you that no, it's not fair and everything. Cool. I can just tell you that richer people get a lot more opportunities than people who don't have money. That's just the truth. People invite you to more things. They open up more opportunities for you. They talk to you more about things. Like once you've built your own financial autonomy, you're under less pressure. You can think things through. You're not at gunpoint. You don't have to sit in careers that you may not like. But I'm just telling you that you're gonna have to start thinking. You're gonna have to start thinking of things a bit more. You're gonna have to be a bit more effective at managing your money. So make money is a very important skill. Now, the skill I'll tell you here, the lesson I've learned is, before you rush to learn how to start investing and managing your money, learn how to make money. And you make money in three ways. You make money, okay? I'm just gonna write this down. So make money equals solve a problem, sell a product, serve a person. If you can do these things, bigger, better, faster, stronger, simpler, cheaper than anybody else, you've made money. That's the truth. So if you can learn how to solve a problem, sell a product, serve a person, bigger, better, faster, stronger, simpler, cheaper than anybody else, you've made money. So once you've made money, then you can manage it. You budget it, you control yourself. Now, I'll tell you one very important thing I've learned is that if you want to control your money, you need to control your emotions. If you want to see your budget go do well, you need to control your emotions. So a lesson I'll tell you is this that I've learned is, what emotion is attached to the things you spend money on? Like, ask yourself, why do I feel this way? And then what thing are you dependent on? Like, if you build emotional dependencies to the things you spend money on, budgeting becomes difficult. But if you dissociate the emotional dependencies from the things you spend money on, be it going out, be it shoes, be it fast food, whatever it is, If you dissociate the emotional dependencies from the things you spend money on, you will find yourself being able to manage your money and not go through money as fast as you used to. So dissociate the emotional dependencies. Now, I'm not saying don't feel emotion. If you enjoy something, you enjoy something. But I'm saying don't depend on it for the emotional fulfillment. Because what I did learn a lot, especially when I started practicing marketing a lot better, is that every purchase you make, you say it's for the function that you bought it for, but it's really for the emotional you're looking for. That's the truth. Everything you spend money on is based on the emotion you're looking for. So you need to dissociate and attach your emotions to the purpose of your life. Attach your emotions to the fulfillment of the purpose of your life and the long-term things, being your transformation, being your what's it, your fulfillment, your self-actualization, working on your talent. Fix your emotions on those areas, but don't put your emotions on the things you purchase. The biggest mistake you can make in managing your money, where it'll struggle. This is the part we all don't talk about. I can give you budget templates, I can give you things to follow, but if you cannot dissociate your emotions from where you spend your money, I can guarantee you're going to have a problem managing your money. So that is step one. Write down everything you spend money on regularly. Next to it, write down what emotion that you go through. Okay, that it gives you, and ask yourself, if I have the opposite of this emotion, do I rush to that thing? Then you're dependent on it, and break that dependency. You have to break the emotional dependency on the things you're emotionally, the things that you're emotionally dependent on, in order to manage your money better, because then you'll have more margin in your money. Once you've made money, now you've got margin in your money, then you're able to invest that money. That's what you need to start doing. Now, multiplying your money is becoming financially literate. You need to invest in your mind. Invest in your mind and understanding how things work. Don't rush for return on investment. Look for consistent returns on investment. Look for things that can consistently give you a return on investment, and stop trying to get rich off your money in 1 year. You get rich off money over 10 to 20 years. You want to get rich in a shorter space of time. You got to sacrifice a lot of time and start a huge business. But even that's going to take you at least 5 years. You've got to stop trying to get rich in 5 years. This wealth is built in 20 years. It's a long-term process. The next thing you need to look at, obviously, is maintaining it, because if you're trying to do that, then you need to structure your money to be able to give you that financial freedom. Because once you're from a financially free position, you're not desperate. You're not moved very easily. And that's where your power comes from. So, you really have to stop trying to take shortcuts. Okay, one thing I can tell you when it comes to the financial journey is stop the shortcuts. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't help. You just lose time. You lose energy. You lose face. It just destroys you. Okay, use your youth. Steve Harvey was actually talking recently about what would really help young people is if they can just get over the going out fancy life as quickly as possible. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying if you can just get over that session of your life as quickly as possible. I know guys who are my age who are stuck in their second childhood. Trust me, I know this. But I'm just trying to tell you, if you can just get over that need for the weekend to be the defining force of your life, then you will actually get somewhere. You have to get over that period in order to start developing. Until then, you're going to be stuck in a loop. All the money you earn will go to whatever frivolous pursuit you're after. So that's what it requires. It also requires that shift in your mind to start doing things a bit better. So, and trust me, these are lessons, like I told you, I've learned personally. The other areas you have to start really taking consideration of is your fitness. Guys, especially, I can see a lot of guys on this live. Men especially, you need to take your health seriously. There's a rise in chronic illnesses being driven by obesity, alcoholism, those things, and sugar consumption. These are the three fastest areas where there's a lot of destruction. I've been big for a lot of my adult. I was a lean machine when I was young, and I was big when I was an adult, and that's what I'm trying to work on. But I've seen that a lot of us guys do not take care of ourselves physically. We don't. We read. We don't go to the hospital annually. We don't watch what we eat. We don't care. Okay, and we just drink anything, jump on anything, and do like we don't really care. And as a result, we live 5 years less than women, and by 2050, we'll be living 8 years less than women. Okay. And as a result, we're also making the end of our lives are much more expensive because of the pills we have to take, the medical procedures we have to go through. The fastest rising illnesses in Zambia, hypertension. It's one of the fastest rising illnesses. Stroke is actually one of the fastest. I've lost friends to a stroke before. People my age, I've lost them to a stroke. Okay, people in their 30s are dying of strokes these days. So you need to really take your health seriously, because it's going to become one of the most expensive parts of your life. Healthcare is becoming much more expensive because of the illnesses we're dealing with. We're not going to the hospital anymore for just malaria. Okay, we're going to the hospital because we have BP. We're going to the hospital because we have gout. We're going to the hospital because we're now having brain seizures. We're going to the hospital because we're not taking care of ourselves. Okay, and a lot of guys are struggling with this. Gents, you consume 80% of the alcohol in this country. You make 86% of the alcoholics in this country. People, there's an issue here. Okay, so especially to the guys. I mean, I'm in a fitness group. I joined a fitness group recently, and there's like 4 of us guys in there. There's 40 people in there, but there's like 4 guys. So women are taking care of their health. They're making decisions now to take care of their health. So they're going to outlive you by 8 years. And this is where the trend is going. In the year 2050, women are going to outlive men by 8 years. They're currently outliving us by 5 years, but they're going to outlive you by 8 years. And the problem is, the end of their lives is still going to be much better. A lot of you guys are going to be rotating in and out of hospital because of the decisions you're making now. Please do not be arrogant with your youth. Utilize it to take care of this vehicle. Warren Buffett said, you've got this one vehicle which you can only drive for the rest of your life. And you get to choose what state it's going to be in, but you've only got this one car. So take care of it. Okay. Now, when it comes to family life, as I said, the dynamics are changing. People are getting married later. So I talked about the thing of those 10 years now. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to flounce around trying to be the man for 10 years? Or are you going to utilize that to build yourself in purpose and vision for 10 years? You got a choice. Okay. You can play or you can be purposeful. Those are the only choices you have for the gap between school and marriage. There was no gap between school and marriage for our parents, but for us, there's a gap between school and marriage, which is now up to close to about 10 years. So in those 10 years between school and marriage, you can choose to play or be purposeful. Now, people say, hey, let the youth be the youth. Forgive us for what we have done. We are young. Sure, but this is why we get cycles of frustration. So if one generation can choose to be purposeful, they can have the lives and they can change the society they want. I'm hoping that we're that generation that chooses to be purposeful with our youth and not be playful with our youth. Because if we are purposeful with our youth, we'll build the foundations of a great country. Like, we will build the foundations of a great country, and nobody will be able to stop us. That's what I'm seeing. I know Kenyans can play, but they actually are very serious, and even Egyptians are serious when it comes to business. They are serious. And that is why they've built what they've built. Yes, they're struggling with 60% inflation right now, all this stuff, but they're way more industrialized than you. You still have to import fish. That desert produces 70% of the fish export of Africa. That desert with one river is producing 70% of the fish export in this country. And then, yes, they're struggling with food prices now. But trust me, they still have much better production capacity as Egypt. Okay, so you have to focus on these 10 years. Are you going to be playful or are you going to be purposeful? If you're purposeful, the end of your life will be beautiful. If you're playful, you will regret a lot of it. I promise you this. Play seems fun now, but you will regret it when you're older. You will regret it. You'll see it wasn't useful. A lot of it. I'm not saying you can't have fun from time to time, but building your life for play, I promise you it's not going to be worth it. That college life, if you kind of take it all the way through with you, you'll just ruin your 30s, and you'll have to start building in your 30s. So use your 20s, your late 20s to be purposeful in life, especially the guys. Guys, I'm calling on you to do this, man. We have to change this narrative. Like, the women are taking this seriously, but we have to change this narrative. We really, really do have to change this narrative of guys playing around so much in their 20s and just slacking off. We have to. Okay? For the sanity of this country and for the protection of the families, the guys have to start taking life a lot more seriously earlier and not waiting only when it's time to get married to take life seriously, but to take life seriously just because You are the lifeblood. You will build the businesses. You are still the strongest source of entrepreneurship. And as much as, yes, women are building businesses faster, men are still the driving force. You still make up 3 out of every 4 businesses created in this country. You are still 3 or 4 of the job creators in this country. Please take that seriously. Be purposeful with your youth. And finally, your flourish. Books, people. Read. The content you consume will create the person you become. Okay? Whatever you're consuming is determining who you're becoming. You are what you eat is the mantra of health, but you become what you think is the mantra of mental development. If you want to be something different, read the things that you want to become and apply them. Don't just read them, apply them. Pick books in your season. I wanted to start a business from scratch, so I read Shoe Dog. That is a story of Phil Knight starting a business from the basement of his parents as a young kid, 26-year-old, with nothing but a couple of $1,000s. He started that business from very little, and he grew an $8,000 a year business to a $5 million a year business. That was the season I was in when I read that book. So it matched and inspired me. So you're looking for books to do 3 things and content. Please, people, in the social media era, there is a lot of trash content. So focus on consuming the right content. If you consume garbage food, junk food, sweets, and all that stuff, you will get diabetes, you will get hypertension, you will get all that stuff. If you consume only that, what do you think you're doing to your brain when you consume that? Okay? You need to cut down on the junk consumption. I'm not saying cut it out, cut down on it drastically. 90% of your time spent consuming content, and I may be preaching to the choir because you people have been here with me for 2 hours, and probably this is best suited to the people who are not here, but that's the message. Spend 90% of your time consuming content that is, write this down, informational, inspirational, and improving. Okay? That's what you need to do. Intellectual, meaning that it's improving. So your content must inform, inspire, improve. These are the 3 things you must be consuming in terms of content. Informative content is driven around your trait, your skill, your area of proficiency, becoming good at something. So consuming content is going to teach you techniques. So content that teaches you techniques and skills in areas, that is what you must do. And yes, Daniel, a reader is a leader. That is correct. So the next thing you should also look at is inspiring content, is stuff that is stories. Stories are very strong at inspiring us. And you're looking for stories that speak to the season you are in your life. If you're building a business, go and read the stories that are based on people who have started something. If you are trying to transition from good to great, well, go and read the story of somebody who moved from small to big. But find stories that match the position that you're in your life. Find some local stories. I've actually been building up a local profile here. Over the last week, I acquired, because I'm trying to build out to being to some level. I got the Radical Entrepreneur book. I got Zingamelu's Braving the Odds. I didn't have it all this time. Now this one I got it. Sunny Zulu's Eccentric Thoughts. I'm trying to tap into the reservoir of these people, okay, and where they are in their lives to try and see what is their thought pattern that has taken them to where they are. And because I'm trying to make that journey as well. So build your bookshelf based on the season you are in. Don't read because everybody's talking about this book and you don't want to be left out of the conversation. Forget the FOMO for the moment. Read according to your season. I want someone to write that down. Read according to the season you are in. Figure out what season you are in. Are you in a building phase? Are you in an expansion phase? Are you in a multiplication phase? And find informing, inspiring, and improving content that does that. Curate your social media timeline, people. Start to phase this stuff out. I know it's not great, but phase out what's not important to you and focus on what is important to you. Because that's really what's going to help you. Your brain will develop according to what it's eating. And if you are feeding it trash, it will decay into trash. Okay. So feed your brain according to what you want to become. Because what your brain is fed is what it will think, it's what you'll feel, it's what you'll do. That is a huge change. I went through my social media. I remember I had like thousands of pages. I removed them, okay, and went down to the bare bones of what I need. What is informing me? What's inspiring me? What's improving me? That's what I started to ask myself. Entertainment, I can do that from time to time. I'm gonna watch a movie later on today, one movie, and then back to work. Okay, I give myself a break in some areas, but focus, people, focus. Those are some of the lessons that I've learned in my life. And yes, as a youth in transition, I want to thank as many of you who've been with me. I know that our marathon session today, 2 hours, 18 minutes. Wow, that's long. So to everyone who's still with me, thank you very much. Semenya, you've been here from the beginning, and I've seen you just comment again. Thank you so much. Daniel, thank you for joining us. Innocent, who was with us, was actually saying, he was actually asking which primary school I went to when I was a kid. I was in Botswana when I was a kid, and I went to a school called Broadus Primary, and then I was at international school in South Africa when I was in my teens, and then after that I went to Rhodes for college. Then I came back to Zambia. I was given the decision whether to stick along to my master's there or come back to Zambia. Fell straight into the capital markets. Worked at the stock market. Worked in unit trusts. Worked at Aon. Vunani. I've worked on bond brokerage, Panex. So I really just worked in the financial sector, in the capital markets of Zambia my whole life. That is where. No, I left Zambia when I was 4 years old. My dad went to go and explore. Though my dad and my family went to go and explore the world. But when I turned 23, I came back to Zambia. So I've been back in Zambia for 12 years now. When I say 12 years experience in this industry, I came straight out of this and straight into this industry. So to everyone who's taken notes in these areas, the quick summary, the long and short of it is, you can't develop if you can't. We can't develop as a nation if we don't take responsibility for it. And if you can kind of curtail the emotions, then we can push ourselves. If you want your freedom, you have to build it. That's what China did. You have to learn from the global system and learn to defeat it. You can't complain about it. You have to learn from your enemy and learn to defeat it. There are 8 prevailing trends which I gave you: decentralization, democratization, digitization, and dematerialization. The second trend is regionalization. The third one is green business and sustainability. The fourth one is populism versus professionalism. I'm sure you remember that. The fifth one is China is no longer our source. The sixth one is monetary policy. Seventh one is the social activism generation. And the eighth one is the rise of the free female, and the family formation rate, and the slowdown of family formation rate, and what that's going to do with those 10 years between school and marriage, and what you're going to do to it, whether you're going to be playful or purposeful. You got to make a choice. I talked to you about the 6 forms of power and the fact that we must build culture, concepts, and community in order to attract capital. I talked to you about the legacy, the life you want to live. You have to be a legend, leave a legacy, and you have to make sure that you build a strong lineage in order to live it through. I gave you my view on the 5 C's that I would like us to work on. That the culture that we build, that we should be a results-oriented group of people who are uncomfortable with the status quo, who seek responsibility before reward and believe in competence over qualification. That is a culture that we have to adopt, a cause to become a green machine, an industrial marvel of environmental sustainability and industrial development. We must become a marvel of that as a country. We have to build a millionaire base that can be built at a pace of no other. 1 million millionaires by 2050. That we must learn to manage our money better by becoming emotionally divorced from spending our money and thinking about where we can place our money to build ourselves and pull ourselves out of wealth, pull ourselves out of poverty and into wealth. We must focus as a group of people not just on the cash part, but also on our character, that we are going to be people who take the initiative. We start for ourselves. We don't wait for politicians. We start things by ourselves. If we want to start an industrial development hub, we do that ourselves. If we want to start movements, we do that ourselves. We take the initiative, we take responsibility, and we start alone. We have strong resilience and we have strong temperament that makes us dynamic. As I said, go and check out Andrew Chibuya's masterclass on high performance, and take what you can from that. And finally, we must learn to work together. You will have to work as an independent contractor, but you have to start working the collaborative power of networks. Networks are going to develop a lot more power. So I say this to all of you, that I wish you the best. On Youth Day, we're talking about developing the minds of this generation, and today that's what I wanted to talk about, because that's the theme for this year. And I thought about whoever's been with me, that I hope your mind has been developed. Thank you very much, Smenya, for that. Thank you. Yes, I pray that it's been worth every minute. Joseph, you are welcome. Kondwani, I know you said you felt like when your Motwale was talking directly to me. You are welcome, my brother. I hope I was. And Jay, to everybody who's been here, share this with your friends. Go through it as much as possible. I will be trying to have a few more of these breakdown things like this. Part of what my job is now is as Moses did to the generation that he led to the promised land. That's part of my job in the way I can. Through entrepreneurship and finance, I know that we can develop to become a much stronger generation. To all of you, I wish you all a good night. Thank you, by the way, for giving me your hours. Thank you for giving me 2.5 hours of your time on a Friday night when you could have been doing anything else, and you could have been doing what people are doing to to obliterate their lives. To think about what you can do to let your youth be the foundations. And I'll leave you with something that Patrick Bet-David said. He said, in your first 20 years of your adult life, and I count this as 15 to 35, you want to dedicate yourself to an industry. Get a name in something. Focus on getting a name in something. I know people say do 1,000 things, but really focus on being good at one thing, like in one area. Okay? Dedicate yourself there, because that name will open a lot of doors for you in various things. It'll give you trust in society. It'll make a lot of things cheaper for you. Build a name. Spend the first 15 years or 20 years of your life building a name. Then what you want to do is build a mission, like build something mega. Now that you've built your name, open yourself to build something. Take on a huge problem, like knock it out. Okay? So that somewhere between 35 and 50, you do that. And then at that point, you can pursue your cause. You can make your impact in society. You can be a philanthropist, you can be anything. Once you dedicate yourself, just start by dedicating yourself and being focused. There's something powerful about focus. That's the one thing that we lack a lot of in our country. We're blown by many directions, but we lack focus. I lacked focus for a long time, and I finally gotten it back. I can tell you that if you can get it as quickly as possible, you can grow. Thank you very much to everyone. Have a blessed day. Have a blessed weekend. Happy Youth Day.